Coming to you live from deep within an icy, radioactive wasteland, we are the survivors of the social justice zombie apocalypse. The few, the brave, the bitchy, once more wading into battle against the zombie hordes with Rantzerker number 50. Shake, 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 shake your booty, language.
Language.
Shit, I'm never going to do that again. I apologize.
So much offensive language there.
No, I just offensive singing, I think.
Offensive body language.
Oh, God. All right. Okay, so with me today is, of course, Karen Strawn, Girl White's Rut, and our very favorite bluish-green deer of the teal deer variety. So thank you for joining us. Before we get into it, I just wanted to, because we've recently had a bit of a break, to retool, or at least to create a plan for retooling. Just manage some expectations in our audience, I suppose, or our listening colleagues. We have, what we did is we took your feedback, we can put it all together, we mashed it up, we cogitated upon it, and we created a set of deliverables. The deliverables that we, two sets of deliverables. The first set is what we will be able to do in April, and the second set will be future deliverables when we manage to free up a bit more time, because it's just me and Brian and our host of volunteers. Me and Brian are full-time collaborators, but the future deliverables are going to require an additional full-time collaborator, or at least part-time collaborator. So what we have right now is a series of changes to the shows, and some new shows that we hope you enjoy, some new show concepts that we hope you enjoy. They will not be immediately apparent this week, but they should all be rolled out by the end of April, since we took that list of deliverables and we created an action plan and a set of deadlines. So look forward to seeing what we're going to be creating for you, but don't expect it this week or completely immediately. Expect it by the end of April, because Brian, we did get a bit of a week off. I actually took 3 days off. I had 3 days of freedom, which was wonderful. And in that week, I managed to get my hours down to 40, so that was great. And Brian also had some time off, and now this week is the first week that he will be full-time. And he has some stuff that he needs to train up with in order to bring these deliverables to you, these new shows to you. So, like I said, managing expectations, we are aiming for it. It'll probably take till the end of April to get it all out. It's that complicated an action plan, and wonderful. We hope you enjoy it. So with that done, do you guys have anything to say, or?
I got nothing.
You got nothing.
Other than to bitch you out for choosing this video to pick apart.
Yeah, but you hate all the videos I choose because they're hateable.
Yeah. I especially hate, it's the only thing that would have been worse would be Lacey Green again.
Yeah, well, we need a break from her. I think we all do. She is somewhat intolerable. What do you think? Is Lacey Green worse than Anita?
Yes, she is. Because Lacey Green is so perky and friendly looking and smiley and squealy and all those things that I always hated about teenage girls. I just wanted to slap their asses till they stopped. Never mind. I just like the. I'm in a mood. So.
Yeah, it's it might be that's the nature of the beast, as it were. I mean, I'm not expecting you to be happy when I bring you this stuff.
Yeah, no. I mean, although the opening sequence of her video, this video here is, it almost makes up for having to sit through 7 minutes of her. So.
Yeah. Okay. Well, speaking of the opening sequence, why don't we go through it? This is the full screen. You guys can see this. Everything's going good.
Yep. Yes.
Okay. Let's do this thing that we are doing. Okay. Can I point something out?
Mm.
Her video series allows her to completely exploit tits and ass for views and
Yep.
as clickbait, but not acknowledge or recognize that's exactly what she's doing.
Well, yeah.
It doesn't even have to be her tits and ass. It has to, it's like she just finds the tits and ass and she presents it and she's using it to draw in interest. I mean, why the hell else would you open with that?
You know, honestly, looking at Catwoman here, I actually am, I find her shoulders and the musculature along the backs, of her shoulders and like just the line of her spine much sexier than her ass. I don't know. I just really find that hot. So
Well, she looks like she could you know, unleash a can of whoop ass.
yeah, but she still walks like a
A
cat.
woman,
She
like or a
well,
cat. Yeah,
like she walks like a very sexy woman, and she is like that's what she's supposed to be, even all the way back to the days of Eartha Kitt.
yeah. But that's I don't know. Just, well, let's find what. Oh, I think we could guess at Anita's conclusion at this point in time, but maybe we should just let her say what she. Any words to say about the intro, Teal dear?
It's clearly sexism.
Yes,
It is so painfully obvious to me that there is sexism and misogyny in here somewhere,
it's the
and
whiff of
that's my
sexism.
prediction.
We can see the markings of sexism, the paw prints of sexism all over this.
Absolutely.
All right, let's go. I mean, okay, can I just point something out? I mean, if you play these games, you only get these things for these sort of like titillating bits for a second, a couple, or like not they're less than 1% of the game, I assume. But here she's compiled them all at once, and nobody else sees the transparency of this.
Well,
Like
I
it's
mean, some of them like Catwoman walking there. That's for like a lot of the game, right? But something like
Mhm.
this, what we're frozen on, this would be in a cutscene, I'm guessing, and
Mhm.
Yes.
yeah, those
Why you
tend to
have the
be like
option to skip it,
well, and they tend to be
if
less
you
than
notice.
5% of the game anyway, right? Depending
Yeah.
on how complex the plot is, anywhere from 1 to 5%.
Mhm.
So, uh, yeah, and how fast you can get through the gameplay. So, yeah, no, you're not looking at these particular scenes. A lot of them just sort of constantly throughout the game. She's compiling them. She's cherry picking a lot of this stuff.
And the thing is that if you took these scenes out, you would still have a game.
Well, yeah, but I mean, the only thing that bothers me about this particular image here is that she doesn't have like bruises or scabs or anything on her. Like
Yeah.
her legs would be banged up if she was actually climbing uh, a rock face in shorts, right? That's the only thing that annoys me about it. Is that somehow women who and I really don't mind women who have nice figures, women who have beautiful faces, women who are really sexually attractive, doing all kinds of sort of athletic, dangerous kinds of things like that in these games. What bothers me is that they don't tend to get banged up at all in any lasting way. Um, so yeah.
Yeah, that didn't bother me immediately. In fact, nothing bothered me about this scene. Mostly what bothers me about this whole concept is that Anita is cherry picking, but she's also cherry picking stuff that's not really integral to the game. Like I said, you could get rid of this stuff, you'd still have a game. It's just sort of added, it's not the point. It's just a little bit of scenery on the way to the point.
Yeah,
But
well, I
maybe,
mean, and it's not like this is entirely unrealistic either. I mean, it would be unrealistic for me. Like, I would never want to climb a rock face in shorts, specifically because you get banged up. I mean, I know from climbing the tree in my front yard that I probably should have worn long sleeves, no matter how warm the day was. But I mean, it's not like this is Red Sophia from the Cerebus, the Aardvark comics, in a chainmail bikini, on a mountaintop in a snowstorm. Um, this is, I mean, she's dressed for the fucking weather. So, yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, like I take your point about being banged up. I would also say that if she was capable of this, she'd have a lot more muscle tone. I think you'd
Mhm.
see a lot more of the muscles of her thighs,
Well,
but
and
maybe it's a
I find
limitation.
that even sexier, just speaking for myself. If
Yeah, but it might be a limitation of the rendering.
I mean, one of the sexiest sort of female icons in pop culture for me was Sarah Connor in that second Terminator movie, when she was so incredibly fucking ripped, um, just absolutely fucking like I totally, oh my god, just drool.
Okay.
Yeah.
Movement can be a powerful thing. Most of us who play games can appreciate.
Can be a powerful thing.
Well, if you're Mario, right? Look at him.
Yeah.
You know, he's taking up way too much space. He's like seriously man spreading there.
Yeah. He's commanding Anita with his masculinity. His alpha male, alpha plumberness.
Well, they do say that, when you stand in a way that takes up a lot of space, or you sit in a way that takes up a lot of space, you're essentially asserting. Even if you're not trying to assert dominance, that's the message that people infer, is that you're dominating the space. You're a
Well,
dominant personality.
you're also making yourself a bigger target, but that's, I guess, neither here nor there. Okay. I just motion can be a powerful thing, as opposed to what? Like I don't know. Just the construction of that sentence seems just bizarre. But that's not relevant to criticizing her for her usual shtick. So I'll move on. Unless anybody else has. Teal'c, did you have anything to add?
It does seem kind of weird. It's like movement can be powerful. It's like, well, yes, but so can standing completely still. It all depends on the situation. Like
Yeah,
if
that's true.
someone's doing something and you disapprove of them, you can just stare at them and not move, and that can say so much more than actually doing anything.
That's actually why my boyfriend's coworkers, when he was still working in the more nerdy area, less industry area of engineering, and he was in the more academic research and development portions of it, most of his coworkers thought he was going to eat them. And it's essentially because he's a big man, and when he stands still and he just looks at you like, what the fuck? Um, it's literally he goes from looking like Jesus to looking like Damien from The Omen. And yeah, people get scared of him.
Yeah. Okay, let's get in 20 seconds. I've had lots of complaints about this. So I'm going to try to at least get to 15 seconds.
The importance of a well-timed jump in a platformer or a skillful dodge in a fighting game, but sometimes it's the seemingly ordinary movements that actually tell us the most about a character. The way they do simple things like walk or sit down. And like anything else about a character, movement can be used in ways that.
Okay, I have to pause here because I'm thinking that I might be bordering on the DMCA problem that we always have to deal with. So movement can say a lot about a character. That's really true.
It
It's
is.
sort of it's okay. I'll give you one, Anita. You're right. There's a lot of characterization that can come through movement. Excellent point. Very salient.
Yeah, no, I mean just ask
Here.
a serial rapist how he picks his targets. A lot of
Or
it
she.
yeah, a lot of it has to do with the way they hold themselves posture-wise and how they move.
Yep. Okay, let's keep going.
Resist higher gender stereotypes or in ways that reinforce them.
Oh fuck! It went immediately downhill. So she goes from a point of saying that movement is a part of characterization to I guess the only what am I expecting? It's Anita.
Well, yeah, and I mean,
Bad
look, I
Alison.
can't, like I said in the ad, I can't help but look at how she presents herself to the public. Face perfectly made up, eyebrows perfectly but kind of scarily groomed. Her hair beautifully coiffed. The big hoop earrings, the feminine print on her top, right? How's she bucking any tired gender stereotypes here in the way she's presenting herself?
Yeah, why isn't she obligated to actually defy the norms? Why does everybody else have to do it for her pleasure, for Her Majesty's pleasure? And yet Her Majesty can have engage and benefit from any norms that she wishes. Okay. Do you want to go? Do you have something to add here, Tilda, or shall we move on?
I don't even. The thing with Anita is just whenever I look at her, it's just I lose the will to live. Like she says something, and you're just like, oh. That's
Well,
the only response I can ever muster anymore towards her.
like I said in the ad, she killed my boner. The moment that,
Yeah,
like,
it's okay. Yeah, you've made a completely valid point. Yes, movement is a means of characterizing things. Yes, there are some movements which are considered more gendered than other ones, usually because they apply to sort of base primal sexual movements. And
yeah.
what and fucking what?
You know what I found really interesting, because somebody on the men's rights Reddit posted just today his little experiment. He took screenshots. He Googled the term man, and then he Googled the term, or men, and Googled the term women. And what he got was a lot of beefcake on the first page of image results from Google when he Googled men. Men with their shirts open, six packs, so their hips, their groin thrust forward, leaning back on a wall, just like really, sexual kind of objectifying poses of a lot of these men. And the women, the result for women was mostly from the shoulders up, mostly just women who were pretty and smiling. One was sensually licking a banana, and that was the only one that was overtly sexual, right? And apparently, if you do boys and girls, the results are kind of the opposite. Girls tends to be more sexual, not quite as extremely or as blanket sexual portrayals on that first page of Google Images, but boys is not sexualized at all. But I mean, you look at it and it's like, okay, Anita, so are we going to talk about how men are presented as sex objects? How when men move, it can be sexy?
I don't think so. In fact, I would say that men moving is sexualized more than women moving, if you think about it. I mean, think about it. Like if you look at strippers, like you've said this multiple times in the past, firemen, policemen, all usually they choose outfits that have a connotation of someone who has to use motion and very, very strong, often very quick motion in his job to get it done.
Yeah, cowboy, whatever, yeah.
Yeah. They have to be strong, they have to be capable, they have to move.
Construction worker.
Yeah, they have to they use their bodies in their jobs. They use motion in their jobs. So I would say that actually and they evoke that by wearing the outfits, and then of course the male strippers are very good at moving.
And
Um
then look at the one of the most common tributes to female sexuality, the odalisque, lying prone.
yeah, like sexualization of motion actually applies more to men than women. Like we sexualize. I think we sexualize male athletes. Well, we also sexualize female athletes.
Yeah,
But
no, well, we sexualize gymnasts,
yeah,
and female athletes that tend to display their bodies, their flexibility, their agility, all of those things. I mean, if you look at the outfit, the leotard that a gymnast wears compared to, what a female soccer player wears, and the type of motions that she's engaging in, the level of flexibility and all of that. I mean, that all applies. I think that nobody watches female gymnastics at the Olympic level is one of the most watched sports out there, right? It's got a bigger audience than male gymnastics. It's got a bigger audience than synchronized swimming or any other, essentially any other, it's huge. Figure skating too, right? Particularly the women's figure skating. And a lot of that has to do with the beauty of the female form. not just the athleticism and the skill, right?
Yeah, well, what I'm getting at is even though athleticism and really beautiful movement can accentuate women's beauty, I dare you to find men who are seen as attractive who aren't also seen as physically capable of that kind of like fireman.
Yeah,
It is like the ability to move and move well is a much larger component of men's attractiveness.
of
And
course.
I would argue that that's why strippers use firemen and soldiers and cops and whatever else they use, as opposed to businessmen or like accountants. I'm gonna dress up
You don't see
because
many, you don't see many male strippers coming out dressed like Donald Trump.
no, you don't. Or it's like, and if they do a businessman, it's the guy who looks like he has incredible, like, but it's the motion of and the capability of the motion of these tropes of these employment or these jobs. That's what's attractive. It's not just the monetary. It's the fact that these guys can move and they can move well and they can move powerfully. So I would say that motion is much more of a component of the sexualization of men. If you get rid of it, you end up with men who most people find unattractive. And wouldn't really, they wouldn't pay to have them shake their junk in their face or whatever. But yeah, so that's what I would propose to Anita. But maybe she maybe we're selling her short. Like maybe her whole thesis here isn't, oh yeah, we can use motion and body language to characterize males and females, and that's sexist, but only towards women. Maybe that's not what she's saying. Maybe she's also saying it's sexist towards men. What do you think, guys? Do you think that that's what's going to happen? Anyone want to make a bet?
I would argue that anything that's sexist towards women is also sexist towards men. You can't treat one group A differently from group B without treating group B differently from group A, right? I mean, it's
Well,
just,
especially not in the genders.
well, it's impossible. It's absolutely fucking impossible. So unless you are, the only way that you can claim that like that it's oppression is if you're going to say we want group A to that group A is the gold standard for treatment, and so all members of group B should be treated exactly the same as members of group A, which we know is not feminism's mandate. We know that absolutely because they're, like how many freaking articles on Jezebel and feministing and all of these other places have we read where, the sexualization and objectification of men, it's just different. It's
Yeah.
just different. It's allowed. It's permissible because it's different, right? No, it's not different. It's the same, right? It's the same fucking thing. And I mean, it's based on different criteria for sure, but it's the same action. It's the same behavior to sexualize members of the male sex and members of the female sex. It's finding them sexually attractive. It's finding them admirable for how sexy they are. So
Okay, let's get Teal Deer in here before we move on. Teal Deer, anything to add?
No, I think that pretty much covers it
Do you
and
do you think
meandered through a
Anita?
plantation of bananas.
Do you think Anita is gonna talk about how men are sexualized?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there's no way that she could possibly miss such a massive target like that in society.
Okay, let's
Yep.
find out.
In Bungie's hugely successful online shooter Destiny, players start by creating their own character, a guardian who will fight to protect the last remnants of humanity. As with character creation tools in other games, this one lets you choose from different genders and races. In most ways, Destiny treats its playable female characters almost identically to how it treats its male characters. For instance, the armor you acquire when playing as
are we bananaing?
Yeah, we have to banana in. So essentially, she stopped at the armor that we've acquired. So she's saying essentially that the armor is gender neutral, I believe. And I just have to talk now because, and feel free to pipe up either Teal Deer or Karen because I got
I
to get a little bit of.
will, in fact, because, yes, the armor that you acquire by killing what?
Ben?
Oh, interesting. Interesting that that would come up, and is always the answer that we get, and the point that she never addresses. Is that
Well,
why the armor is all gender neutral? Is it because it's actually like is it because it's men's armor that you've just been killing and taking off of them, off of
Yeah,
their
no,
corpses
I
after you impaled them?
I think it is. I mean, like you kill a man and you take his armor, it's not going to have like boobs
why
incorporated.
is that gender neutral, by the way?
Well, it's not actually, but there you go.
Because that's another thing that we get right into. Why isn't there stuff that's specific for men? Like women obviously have stuff that's like it doesn't seem like there's man and woman. It's more like there's woman and gender neutral.
Yes,
Does
it's
that what
because
everyone
the
else?
gender neutral stuff is the general functioning shapeless thing. The thing which is the female armor is always sort of shaped specifically for women, so it is something designed to cater for them that is not sort of the norm. Like a woman could totally use men's armor. Most sort of loose armor that you wear, even things like modern flak jackets, chainmail, even single piece breastplates from like knightly pieces of armor would actually fit women because they have that large sort of bow in the front of them, which was designed to deflect direct stabs and push them off to either the side, under the arms, and over, and so on and so forth. So that's sort of what it is. It's like the gender neutral one could be used by anyone. It's purely utilitarian. Whereas then women get the special option of, hey, we can put cleavage into that thing, which is totally not going to be really impractical when someone stabs you with a blade in the chest. It points it directly into the sternum and then impales you, which is wonderful. I mean, I suppose if you wanted to do the male thing, you'd then be looking at the Romanesque armor, which actually had like abs and pecs actually on the plate, but we don't do that anymore.
Well, but
What?
even so, even with the abs and the pecs on the plate, it's not quite the lovely kind of valley in between those pecs.
Stab
That
here.
yeah, or stab and hit the boob, and then your spear just automatically goes down the
Yeah.
valley and
Yeah,
into.
it either goes off to the side or right into the middle, and the right into the middle is a really big problem.
But God forbid. But that is an interesting statement. To first of all, that women need to have not just practical stuff, but special things that emphasize their femininity because society hates it so much. So we all go around emphasizing that which society is scorns and shames, right?
Yeah.
All of us.
I say, an
But
interesting thing to point out here is that historically, if you look at well anything that comes to women, like actual armor and equipment used by women, it was the gender neutral stuff. The women who had the ornate armor that actually did have anything like that were never combatants. It was sort of ornamental stuff, or they were people who, they'd go into the battle, but they'd stand at the back and they'd give orders and they'd tell people what to do.
It was
Any women
Elizabeth.
who were on the front line of anything would just be, slightly curved front plate on your body, shields or whatever the hell you're using. Just go at it.
Yeah, no, Elizabeth the First in her sort of gold ornamental armor, you know, sitting on a horse, overlooking the battle but not participating. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd like to actually do a little talk a bit about the Roman armor because I believe it was Teal Deer pointed out that Roman armor actually emphasized masculinity. So even though that probably made it less functional, because I mean, even if it's not as bad as the boob armor, you're still not getting that. If it curves outward, it deflects the strike away from the body. So essentially, they sacrificed practicality in order to emphasize their masculinity. I just find that interesting because it is also a society where the spark of desire, like men were supposed to be desirable and women were supposed to desire men. So focusing and showing your sexuality or your specialness as a man for being a man. I mean, it was a society that had cult of the phallus, I mean, for God's sake. Seems to be something that I find that interesting. But in this era, men wear the gender neutral stuff. Not the stuff that like Romans, women couldn't wear that stuff because it was probably it was made for a male body. But this era, we just wear the gender neutral stuff that's supposed to protect the body, which it protects the body, so that's good. But again, it doesn't really say male. It's just gender neutral. So I just thought that was interesting. Okay, I'm gonna banana.
female character isn't sexualized, but looks just as practical and stylish as the gear equipped by male characters. However, there is one way in which the male and female characters are differentiated by gender, and it has to do with their movement. Watch how a male guardian sits down, taking.
Okay, I just have to banana here because again, the issue is a DMC thing, and although I did want to point out, men and women sit down differently because they have different bone and muscle structure.
Yeah. Yeah,
This
no,
is
they have completely different pelvises, and they have generally different ways that their hip joints are like their femurs are connected to their hips and the whole bit, right?
yeah. So it seems more like this is just people showing off their anatomical skills, like making a horse move differently than a gazelle or something. But go ahead, Teal dear. I think I heard you.
Nope, nope, not
Oh,
yet.
okay. Okay, let's banana.
A load off after a long, hard day fighting the forces of pure evil. It's simple, it suggests confidence. When a female character sits down, however, it's a completely different story. She sits like a delicate flower. This is supposed to be a hardened space warrior, and yet she's sitting around like she's Ariel from The Little Mermaid.
Oh, whatever,
What the fuck?
You know, honestly, just speaking for myself, uh, sometimes I sit like a man with my knees apart and all of that, and because I have like literally no ass. And sometimes, most of the time, I sit with my legs crossed in a half lotus. In fact, I will often have to do that if I'm sitting in an audience or something like that in a theater, and I'll change positions multiple times, and half the time I'll be sitting in a half lotus in the chair if my feet are clean, if my shoes are clean, because that's what's comfortable for my pelvis, right? And if I don't do that, I get pain in my pelvis. I would not be able to sit like that man for any length of time on the ground like that. On a bus seat, sure. On a milk crate, sure. Right? But not on the ground. I would never sit like that.
Well, in my case, I don't mind. I actually sit like that. I actually find sitting like the guy very comfortable. I don't think I've ever sat like the woman in my entire life. Not that I begrudge women to sit like that. And I actually didn't find it that feminine the way she was sitting. I thought that she might be wanting to sit like that in order to maybe do something with a pout, like something like work with something that she had to put on the ground. You know what I mean? Like she had to get closer to the ground. I didn't immediately go to, oh, this is like a really feminine pose, blah blah blah.
Well,
Um,
that it is the way women tended to sit when they were wearing, back when in the day when they all wore long skirts, right? They would sit like that so that their skirts would cover their legs, right?
just a second. Was she wearing like a series like of okay, so she actually has sort of a skirt on.
Yeah,
That's
but
what
I
he
mean,
has.
there's no
No
reason.
skirt.
Yeah, but there's no reason for her to sit like that with what she's wearing at the moment, because she's not looking to cover up her legs, other than for comfort. And a lot of women, like I would sit like that. I don't tend to sit like she does, but I would sit if I had to sit on the ground. I would sit like that before I would sit like that guy, the guy, just because
Hmm.
of how my frame is all interconnected. It just would not be comfortable for me to sit like him.
Yeah, I just don't see how this is really that. And the other thing is that the men sit in one way, the women sit in another, probably due to musculature. Where is the horrible satanic bullshit? Like, where is the sin coming in? I know she's going to tell us where the sin is, but it just doesn't seem very sinful to me. I don't see the sin, the Masaga sin. I know it's coming, but I just don't see it. Tealder, did you want to add before we fruit salad this sucker?
Who cares?
Yeah.
That who gives a fuck? Is this
It's-
really what we're gonna bitch and moan about now? Oh, two different characters have two different animations for something that doesn't actually fucking matter in the game. That's basically a totally optional action that you probably never have to do ever in order to actually complete anything mechanically.
and the other thing is that isn't the presumption here that if she sits in a feminine way and that's bad, then feminine things are bad? I mean, are we moving towards phobia here, Miss Sarkeesian? Well, let's find out.
A character's animation and movement is just as much a part of who they are as their appearance and their clothing. And like any other aspect of a character, game designers use movement to communicate information about them to the player. This isn't inherently a bad thing. Expressive character animations are just a way for the game to contribute to our understanding of who a character is and what defines them. How a character walks, jumps.
Oh God, pointless filler. I apologize, people.
Rayman, though.
Pointless filler, but she's actually saying something legitimate here. This is not wrong.
No, it's not wrong, and she's just
Well
gonna
done.
use it. She's just gonna use it. Well, no, you know what? I'll
Well,
give her the
what's
benefit of the
wrong
doubt.
is that it's in any way problematic. So.
Well,
Yeah,
it has to be, doesn't it? Oh, someone uses an animation technique to tell you something about their character. Let me tell you why that's a problem. Of course, because anything that in any capacity gives anyone some sort of characterization or some sort of idea about something has to be problematic, doesn't it?
Only when it deals with gender.
Even how they sit down can tell us a lot about them. For instance, Ryu Hayabusa's precise and graceful movement conveys that he is a highly trained ninja.
Not the fact that he's jumping off fucking walls? Like, alright, no, sorry.
Right, okay. Sorry, there's lots of things going on here, and I want to address all of them. Yes, it is the way that he is moving, but look at how he's moving, and you say it's like, oh, it's not the fact that he's jumping off walls. You can get video games where you have the Hulk jumping off of walls, but nothing about him screams ninja. And that is actually to do with sort of how they're leaping, the poses that they strike as they jump. Like, some of them are designed specifically so that their body cuts certain lines so that it looks more aerodynamic and more fluid, as opposed to someone who just sort of jumps chest first through a wall because they have the physical mass and strength to do so. So, yeah, that's just, it's a thing that happens. Yeah, you use that.
Okay, point to Teal'c and Anita. Let's, banana.
The way Nathan Drake scrambles and fumbles in dangerous situations is meant to suggest that he's more of a relatable, ordinary guy who just keeps finding himself in extraordinary circumstances.
Oh, shit.
We were almost in that.
By contrast, the way that women...
I just lost a bit of track of where I am, so this is... Okay, so yeah.
Ninja character having like a really graceful way of moving.
No, I know what she was talking about. What I lost track of was the time. So I wanted to make sure to pause before, because I have fucked up before. I have fucked up.
I know you have.
Yes, I know, and I know you know I have.
As have we all.
Okay, well, fair enough, but I don't want to fuck up again. But so essentially, what she's saying is that these two men, you can characterize them by using different kinds of movement. For the ninja, he has this sort of poised movement, and for this individual whose name I forget,
it's essentially the difference between Drake, between my klutzy dog jumping up on the couch and Mia your cat Mia jumping up on the couch. One is just to look more able, to master that. I mean, my dog is such a fucking retard. Half the time she just doesn't make it up. So,
although it's hilarious when a cat doesn't make it up.
Yeah, it is, and the reason why it's so hilarious is because you expect them to be able to master those moves, and so when they fuck up, it's just like extra funny, right?
Yeah. Sorry, Mia. But yeah, so she's basically saying that movement and characterization. So movement, you can have different kinds of movement for two different types of men, and they can just provide characterization. I guess she's going to talk about how we characterize women with movement. Just a sec.
Women move in games isn't just used to suggest their confidence or their skill or some other facet of their personality. It's very often used in conjunction with other aspects of their design to make them exude sexuality for the entertainment of the presumed straight male player.
Okay.
Of course, you have to go straight there, don't you?
But here's the thing. The way that most of these men move also exudes sexuality, sexual attractiveness. The way most of the male characters move is the way sexy men move.
But the presumption is that's not attractive because straight men aren't attracted to it. But I think that...
Well, it's a power fantasy, but I'm sorry. Power is attractive to women. So if it's a power fantasy, it's a fantasy. It's men putting themselves into the character and,
Of being desirable to women.
of being desirable to women.
Yeah, that's some power fantasy because yeah, we've established in the beginning that a lot of men's sexuality is wrapped up in their ability to move in very not just powerful but poised ways. Like I mean, you might argue that the ninjas have got a more masculine movement than Nathan Drake. I don't know if I would argue that, but there's a certain the poise, the precision, the ability to apply just enough force. That is a component of
I
male
mean,
sexuality.
guys watched Bruce Lee movies, right? Because that was like they were looking at that body, right? And looking at its ability to do stuff, right? And they were thinking that's powerful, that's amazing, that's sexy, right? They weren't thinking I'm sexually attracted to that, but they were thinking that that's sexy.
That would be sexy to women. This is really
Yeah.
interesting because if you think about it, the entire game world constructs a persona that men can enter, and a persona of sexual desirability for women. Whereas women just, they have fashion magazines.
Well,
They
look at
just
look at God of War, right? And the sex scenes, and how he sort of walks into the room, in those cut scenes where there are women who are waiting for him and drooling over him and all of that, right? And like that is no different, right, from a woman sitting in the back of a strip club, and they've done studies on where men's gazes in strip clubs when they're watching female strippers, where those men's gazes go most, spend most of their time, and where the women in the strip club, straight women, where their gazes go most of the time. And for men, most of the time, the majority of the time, the men are focused on the woman's face, right? For women, women avoid looking at the woman's face. She's picturing herself there. She's imagining what it would be like to have that body and have it be able to move in those ways, right? And so arguably a man and a straight man and a straight woman watching a female stripper, right? The man is humanizing her, right? Going out of his way more than 50% of the time looking at her face, right? Looking at her facial expressions, right? And the women in the audience are thinking, "Oh, if only I could have that body and make it, move in those ways, make it bend in those ways," right? That would be like, so it's the women who are arguably dehumanizing
well,
other
they're
women.
sort of wearing her skin.
Yeah.
All right, and the other thing, so interesting, it just occurred to me that going into the game world and taking on this persona and having this physicality, and not just the being able to have this physical motion and very powerful motion that has a large effect, that can have a large effect on the environment, or is very resilient to the environment, which seems to be another component. But also being able to do these things, like all of that constitutes a desirable man. So essentially, the gamers are going, and I don't think this is the only issue, but the gamers, what feminists are calling a power fantasy, is actually a desire fantasy. Men are engaging in the fantasy of wearing the skin of men who are traditionally seen as desirable to women. So this, like, condemning men for this is sort of like condemning women for reading fashion magazines
Yeah,
or wearing makeup.
or wanting to diet.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like they're essentially, like, Anita Sarkeesian is essentially doing the same thing as some I don't know, Alan Sarkeesian yelling at women for dieting or wanting to appear sexy or wanting
dare you.
to to wear.
Cater to the female gay or to the male gaze.
Well, how dare you? Yeah, or how
Want
dare you want to be attractive to men? How dare you engage in these medias in which you can fantasize about being attractive to women? You're horrible misogynists. Wow, that's really fucked up, Anita. All right, Teal dear, did you want to add? We gone way out of wherever.
Nope, I'm pretty much okay with that.
I just
All
want to
right.
say this woman's legs are gorgeous. Just saying.
Okay, that's banana.
Catwoman from the Arkham series has a deeply exaggerated hip sway when she walks. In combination with her clothing and the game's camera angles, all of this is meant to drive the player's focus to her highly sexualized butt. In Resident
Butts, butts,
I,
like that's the only thing. That's like she has an ass fetish. I swear to God, she wants it in the ass. That
can you see her hands right now?
because like literally, she. Oh yes. Okay, when you are playing third person, right? You know, and your camera angle is behind the character that you're playing, you're gonna see their butt more than you're gonna see their boobs. You just are, okay? And that butt is sexy, right? But everything about that character is sexy. There's no focus particularly only on the butt. No, like look at the cleavage, look at the zip, you know, halfway down to her navel, exposing like huge amounts of her breasts and her, you know, and the skin.
Nope, that's not sexualized, Karen. It's just the butt.
Yeah, like I am just like she's got a thing. Like she did a whole video on butt.
Whoa, Karen. She doesn't have a thing for butt.
She has a thing.
Macintosh.
Ass.
Macintosh has a thing for butts.
No, I think Anita has a thing for butts.
No, but Anita is his sock puppet. Remember?
Not anymore. He's not even on staff anymore.
Really? Oh, okay. Well,
he's no longer listed as staff on.
Well, they might be actually hiding the hand up her ass.
Yeah, I don't know, but it was shortly after he put out on his own channel that that blooper reel.
Oh.
You remember? Shortly after that, he was quietly removed from the list of staff members of Feminist Frequency.
I guess he let a little bit too much of the curtain open so we could see the face of Oz.
Yeah, well, I mean, I had the feeling that he was like blinking in Morse code through that entire video, like asking for help, like rescue.
Okay, but it's unless Teal Deer wants to talk about the butt or the booty, as it were.
It's there. You play third-person games, you're going to see them.
Yeah, this is true.
You know, I don't understand this bizarre fixation that she has on them. I don't know if it's this video or the other video where she's like, oh, look, it's front and center and everything. No, it really isn't.
Well, and I like, okay, I like butts too, especially
I like butts and I cannot lie.
Ladies' butts. Women's butts, if they're like the Catwoman's butt, not so much this one because it's a little fleshy for me, but Catwoman's butt in that previous shot, oh my God, I could eat that for lunch. I really could. You know, so sue me.
Yeah, well, I don't think Anita's going to sue you for that. I think there's a distinct, you know, you need to have a particular marker of being part of the satanic, demonic half of the human race.
I need a penis, you know.
Yeah, for her to give a shit about what you desire, or to consider that your desires somehow shape the world in some sort of magical way.
It really is like Maddox said. Was it Maddox?
Don't ask me.
Who said he did a video on the Spider-Girl, Spider-Woman, or whatever, the alternate cover where she was sort of like essentially wearing painted-on suit, right? And climbing up over the edge of a building and her butt was in the air and all of that, right? And it got canceled. It was done by a very, very famous artist who does a lot of sort of eroticized art, has many, many male and female fans. But he essentially said that feminist objections to that cover were heterosexist. And they are, right? Because they assume that the people who are going to be drooling over this sexualized pose of this woman with her butt up in the air on display, and it was a very hot, kind of surreal, almost, you know, like sort of that uncanny valley kind of pose, right? That all of those people who would like that cover are straight men, that there would be no lesbian women, there would be no bisexual women who would appreciate the cover and think that it's sexy and think that it's great and think that it has value, right? it would only be it's only there to cater to straight. That's heterosexist, and it is, right? Like I love looking at women's bodies. Like, and I don't look at them thinking, well, some of them I look at them thinking, I wish I could have that body, right? But most of the time, I'm looking at them and thinking, I wish I could have that body for about 2 hours in my bedroom with me, right? Um, like that's what I'm thinking when I'm looking at female strippers and looking at female porn stars and looking at someone like Mercedes Carrera, looking at even Anna Cherry, who it's tempered because we have a friendship relationship, but I still find her like extremely fucking attractive. And yeah, no, she's Anita's going to essentially demonize men for feeling the way I feel about the female form. And
Well, that's because men. Ooh, echo. That's because men have power. Desire is desire plus power. I don't fucking know. But the thing is that, yeah, that's a good point that Karen is making. I got to sort of truncate because we're going to move on. But the lesbians, and I don't mean political lesbians. I mean, the lesbians that are actually real lesbians, and you know who you are. You know who you are. Feminists are going to take away your candy too, just to get back at straight men.
Yeah.
And once these women find a demographic that's more victimy than you're probably going to go the way of the gay men. So think about that. And Teal dear, did you have anything to add before we fruit salad this?
Nope.
In Evil Revelations, Jill Valentine somehow manages to wiggle her whole body while she runs.
Nita
Okay.
Sarkeesian confirmed for having never run anywhere holding a weapon ever in her life.
Yeah, or having like any kind of amount of equipment on her.
Yeah, your body swings a bit. It's kind of unavoidable.
Especially holding the weapon in two hands like she's doing.
Yeah, holding something like that, well, you'd never really hold it like that anyway.
But you
if you're doing it like that, your upper body is going to have to rotate as your legs extend forward and come behind you. It's unavoidable.
Yeah, because you can't.
By virtue of that stance.
You can't swing your arm for balance.
Just by way of curiosity, how would she usually hold it, Teal dear?
It depends on what you're doing. If you're doing sort of a room clearance like that, you probably keep it up, drawn as you're going around.
Okay.
Well, and you wouldn't.
You can hold them down like that, but like I said, it depends on what you're doing. You can have them just in one hand as you're going around like that, keeping the other hand free. Because if you're doing anything like that, which looks like room clearance stuff, you might have something else in the other hand, or need it available to open doors, or flashlights, or knives, or something like that.
Okay, I gotcha. So would she be more likely to hold? She'd be more likely to have it higher up then, right?
Yeah, you can do to avoid that, but yeah, it just seems kind of weird that you're running around with just a pistol anyway. But
and actually, I think that even though this isn't accurate, I think it actually does make her look a little more badass.
But she still would be wiggling though, even if she was holding the gun out in front of her face, because she can't, like I said, she can't swing her arms to maintain her balance, so she has to use her entire torso to
generate the momentum. Yeah.
Yeah, but I see what Teal Deer's saying, because it looks more like she's just making her upper body a target, whereas if she had her arm up, she'd already be ready to sight any like potential hostile, like to actually shoot them, as opposed to, because she's I don't know what I'm saying, but just intuitively that's what I see what you're saying, Teal Deer. But the other thing I want to add is, did you notice something? Did you guys notice something? That between the Catwoman and this woman, did you know they had different types of movement?
Well, yeah, very different types of movement.
Both feminine, both obviously feminine, but very different, as if they were trying to characterize them within the subheading woman, just like the men.
I know, it's so weird.
It's so fucking weird, isn't it? It's like they're recognizing that women can have different characters, can use their bodies differently, and that Black Cat is going to use her body in a very, or sorry, not Black Cat. Catwoman is going to use her body in a very sexual way, whereas this woman is going to be a lot more practical and economical about it. And like Teal said, if she's holding a weapon, it's likely her ass is going to wiggle to compensate. Banana.
In Assassin's Creed Syndicate, Evie Fry is a character who avoids falling into many of the sexualizing traps that some playable female characters do.
She basically just looks male, I guess.
But she still walks.
That's it. Like, she's sexualized as a man in a male way. Well, I guess her petticoats or whatever they are look a little bit feminine, but I just find that remarkable. She's not sexual, or she's sexualized like a man is, which is acceptable for a woman. A woman can be sexualized in a more masculine way or a more feminine way. So I guess Anita says it's okay to sexualize women in a masculine way.
Well, yeah, and men.
Yeah, okay.
With an exaggerated hip sway. In Saints Row the Third, you can change your character's gender at any time.
Exaggerated hip sway? Okay, no, she didn't have an exaggerated hip sway. Catwoman had an exaggerated hip sway. That freaking...
It was her character!
Yeah, no, but... Okay, women sway their hips when they walk. When men do that, what that's called is strutting, right? If a man kind of moves his hips as he walks, right, that's he's strutting, right? Women do that just normally. I sway my hips when I walk, unless I'm walking like super fast, unless I'm like walking.
Then you sway them more because it gives you extra leverage as you move. Like a power. Have you ever seen power walkers move?
Oh yeah.
Like even the men, they would put Catwoman to shame.
Yeah.
So they're wiggling along the ground. It's not hilarious. Oh, well, I find them both male and female power walkers to be slightly hilarious because it's like the least aggressive sport, and they sort of make it into something aggressive.
I know, and the hilarious thing is that like even though it's an exaggerated version of a female walk, where the hips are swaying like really to the most extreme degree, it actually comes across as gorky.
Yeah, for both men and women. But you know what? Don't malign the speed. They get pretty fast. All right, but what the hell is this guy doing? Like, why is he wearing female underwear? What is this? Does his pecs need? Do his pecs need support?
She said you could change the gender of the character at any moment.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. Let's see what. Unless Teal there, do you have anything before we?
Nope.
Okay.
If you go to the clinic and swap your gender from male to female, you also come away with a newly sexualized walking animation.
Wait. Why? Okay, all right. Okay, I knew that this was going to come up. This is. How is it? Okay, let's go back and look at this animation. Let's look at the animation.
You also come away with a newly sexualized walking animation.
Okay, Anita, you don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Because, and this is based on a study that I read a long time ago about how men and women walk when they. So essentially the scientists just had them on a treadmill. Okay, they just said to them, okay, you guys just walk. And they did this with men and they did this with women. You're just walking. And then they asked them, and then they had them do this. I think they had like a control group and a non-control. Then they had they said, okay, we're watching you. And or they would say this attractive woman, like, or they'd have like an attractive woman for the man, or maybe attractive woman and man for the woman, and they would observe them, and they would change. They both, men and women, would change how they walked, but they changed it in different ways for exactly the same purpose. When men thought they were being viewed by someone they found attractive or potentially attractive, they moved their shoulders more to emphasize their shoulders. When women thought they were being viewed by someone they found attractive or potentially attractive, or like a potential partner or whatever, I mean, on a subconscious level, they moved their hips. Both men and women sexualize themselves as they walk. I hate that word, sexualize. Both men and women attempt to elicit desire, and by changing the way they walk in specific ways. How is it that the woman is sexualized but the man isn't?
Yeah, no, I agree. And like, even if you look at studies that have been done on how women walk, depending on what point of their menstrual cycle they're in, um, the hip sway is more exaggerated when they're fertile, when they're ovulating, or just prior to ovulating, than when they're, premenstrual. When they're actually their biology is open for business. Their hip sway is more exaggerated.
Sexualized walking animation, even though you're literally supposed to be the same character.
She's not really sexualized
Male
though.
heroes are allowed to simply.
That's what pisses me off. She's not. She's
No,
wearing
she's
gray slacks and a purple shirt, right? Her figure's accentuated, so is his. She's not being like Catwoman. She's just walking like a woman walks. Oh my God! Like, I'm sorry, we have different.
no, she's walking differently than the man.
We have different anatomy, Anita.
So this is like this, and she doesn't realize the sexism. She's like completely reducing the man's sexual desirability, or his sexiness, or even that he's maybe strutting and moving his shoulders in order to appeal to women. She's completely like that. He is just the baseline neutral gray, and anything that deviates, if the woman deviates in any way from the baseline neutral gray, that is the man, she is sexualizing herself. And yet the man isn't even a baseline neutral gray. He is sexualizing himself.
If I were a woman, if I were just like a regular woman, just like a normal fucking woman, just like a normal woman going about my day, and I actually spent some time thinking about what Anita is saying about femininity, about female sexuality, about all of those things, right? I would be so, so, so against her. I would just be like, yeah, no. And the problem is that women don't think about it. They don't think deeply enough about what she's saying and realize that, like, Anita is essentially saying, what makes you who you are, physically and psychologically, is not okay.
No, any deviation from apparently women must move exactly like men. And then Anita is saying that men move in a way that's just completely neutral, doesn't relate to their sex appeal or their biology or their anatomy. It's just they're just the base neutral. That's even shitty. It's shitty to men. Because no, they don't. They move in a particularly male way, in a way that women probably couldn't emulate if they tried, and they're not sexualizing themselves. All right, Teal'dir, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, in a way, it's this bizarre assumption that she has that you've mentioned that male is a default, and it seems to be a constant theme with Anita and indeed other feminists like her. That it's like, oh, male is this presumed default for everything, and that anything female is different. It's like, no, men and women are as different from each other as they are from the central starting point, which they both start as. The actual default for a human would be somewhere exactly in between a male and a female, which would probably involve walking with no hip roll and no shoulder swing at all, because it would be somewhere in the middle. It's
Yeah.
the differences biologically that take the hip sway in and the shoulder sway away for women that emphasizes the shoulder sway and then reduces the hip sway for men.
I would actually suggest, if you want to see a woman who actually managed to mimic flawlessly the male way of walking, right? Watch that 2020 episode. It's available on YouTube. Profile on Nora Vincent and over her book, The Self-Made Man.
Yeah, but it's difficult. It takes time.
It took a lot of time, and she has a body shape that, I mean, she's got broad shoulders. She's tall. She's like 5'11" or something like that, right? And so she's taller than the average man, and she has broad shoulders, and she's she's got sort of a masculine frame, like at least masculine enough that she would be able to trick people if she was just standing still in a suit, right? But the moment that, like, she had to take lessons on how to walk like a man, right? And she managed to do it. She managed to be able to walk in that sort of confident, sexy way that some men walk, right? Where it's the shoulders that are the feature that you're trying to show off, right?
Yeah. And incidentally, now that we're talking about showing off your shoulders, which is the reason why you would do that exaggerated shoulder rolling, which isn't practical any more than the exaggerated hip movement is practical. It's something that you put on, and people don't do it. You know, men don't do it regularly if they're just walking down the street and they don't think anybody attractive is around. They don't do it
And
because it's not efficient.
And it's not that they do it consciously either.
No, it's not that they do it consciously. It's just, I'm going to show off the goods, and it's not a practical thing. It's not a movement that's practical, just like the hip sway is not a movement that's practical, necessarily, unless you're a power walker. But they look like goobers. Anyway, but speaking of the shoulders, look at this guy. He has his shoulders completely bare.
Yeah.
And emphasizing the very thing he probably will emphasize when he moves. I wonder if a lot of these guys, she was talking about the ninja and this other guy, I wonder if a lot of them, the male players, while they're, or the male characters, while they're going through these motions, also do that, also emphasize their shoulders in some way. I didn't go back to look at the walks that she showed, but I wonder if we did, if we would see that. I don't know. It's a thought. But let's see what she has to say, unless Teal'dir has a final thought for this before this banana.
I will take mine with a chocolate syrup and some
All right.
sprinkles.
One banana with chocolate sauce and sprinkles coming up.
Walk like normal human beings in ways that are average or strong or graceful.
Normal human beings. Normal human.
No, what?
Mom said it. Men are normal human beings.
No, Anita. Men walk like men. They don't walk like normal human. What? How is it that any woman is following this shit or finding it empowering? Like, seriously. I know that she hasn't said it. This is like one of the most offensive fucking things she said. She has literally said that men are normal human beings. Well, thank you, Anita. I thought I was a normal human being, but apparently I'm not. They walk like men, Anita. They walk like they have shoulders and narrower hips. They move like they have shoulders and narrow hips, and I bet if we watched really carefully, they would probably be exaggerating their shoulder movements like men do when they want to fucking be attractive. Like, okay.
Banana.
Your
Okay.
mistake, Anita, was comparing video game characters to normal people. Video game characters are not normal people. They tend to be superhuman, or the peak of what a human being can physically be. When you start working at those sorts of thresholds, you don't move like normies. It's just that simple.
I think too. It doesn't even matter whether you're superhuman or you have superior capabilities physically or anything like that. I think it has to do with confidence. And so when a man is confident, he'll strut, and when a woman is confident, she'll strut. And for men and women, what you
The
accentuate.
strut comes out in different places.
Yeah, and your strut is going to be different because there are different things that are attractive. Like I was going to ask, like with the guy with the bare shoulders in the very beautifully rounded bare shoulders in the previous clip, right, or the previous shot, right? Like just put a pair of nipples on his shoulders, like a nipple on one and a nipple on the other, and you've got like boobs. It's like, oh my goodness, it's essentially that.
Yeah, what is not sexualized about that? And I did notice, if we go back and take a look, let's see. You take a look at this guy's outfit. Again, we're back to the Roman armor that isn't actually the most practical for deflecting weapons.
Yeah, but look at his codpiece. Oh my goodness.
Jesus, yes. But it's like, this is not necessarily practical armor. This is actually armor that's emphasizing his sexuality. And adding the bare shoulders, this guy is meant to look sexy, Anita. He's meant to look sexually desirable. And I'm guessing, I'm not entirely sure, we will probably see some of that in the motions that they chose to animate him with. So let's go through this again. Let's banana.
In ways that are average or strong or graceful or goofy.
Oh, I guess she meant the guy who was like fat was average. Oh.
Well, yeah,
Okay.
but yeah.
No, she did say normal. She did say normal. I remember that.
Or strong or graceful or goofy.
Why was that goofy? Let's go back. What was
Strong
goofy
or graceful
about?
Or goofy. Meanwhile,
I think that women are also portrayed. Like I don't see. Does this not like? I'm defeated by something here, Karen.
Yeah, but no. If you portray women as goofy, like, what does that get you?
I don't know. I guess it gets probably some pissed off feminists because women are deserving of respect.
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna do a really hard banana this time. So, Tildir, get your thoughts in before. So I'm
Okay.
gonna go the full 20
Just
seconds.
interesting points, because I can. If you actually compare this woman here, the non-Bayonetta woman who I don't recognize, if you actually compare her outfit, to that ninja that we were looking at earlier, you actually realize they're sexualized in quite similar ways. They're both wearing sort of tight-fitting tops. Both of their shoulders are bare. They're both got very sort of high boots. The upper part of the thigh is actually exposed of armor, so you can sort of see either the skin or the musculature. The stomach muscle is all exposed. You can see the sort of V-cut pattern from the iliopsoas crest and the psoas muscle down there. Now on her, obviously, it's actually her body. On the other guy, it was embossed into the armor. It's all actually being sexualized in quite similar ways. So,
Yeah.
and these are both things which are attractive, which, again, it's sort of like humans are kind of attracted to very similar things. It's just that they get emphasized in different ways because of basic genetic differences.
Yeah, I mean, she also has high heels, but she also has a lot of stuff that is a little bit more concealing than his. Like she has the sleeves and the skirt. So you actually, Anita, that's a butt covering
It
right
is.
there.
It's very
It's a
strategic.
very strategic butt covering on that woman because I noticed in a totally non-perverted way. I noticed that when he was doing his little acrobatics. Oh, there you go.
Yep.
And you know what?
That
It's
ass.
interesting. That ass. What's really interesting is that she chose this particular angle, because if she had chosen an angle, which is the usual angle that people play, I don't know what to call this, third person, you would see his ass right now. You would have a front row seat to this man's ass. But she chose this particular angle. Interesting. I wonder if this is the common angle that you use to play this character, and probably not. Alright.
Meanwhile, motion captured animations for female characters often make them look as if they're walking down a runway at a fashion show in stiletto heels.
So they make the women look confident and strutty.
Yep.
You know what else?
Strutting.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
Is her entire argument just that men and women strut differently? Her
basically.
entire argument seems to be that men and women are confident and show it in generally slightly different, or actually in the same way, but it just manifests very slightly differently.
Well, not slightly different. It manifests in the hips or the shoulders, but it's the same kind of emotion. I'm sexy, and I want to show it off. And I don't know. Like, I guess that is her argument. I'm not exact. Well, maybe she'll surprise us and she'll explain why this is sexist against women more than just, I don't know.
Even when the characters are actually in combat situations. Watching these characters' in-game movement animations, you'd think that the director of the motion capture session directed them to walk like a model instead of a hardened space warrior, or master thief, or...
Why did she use a man, or is that a woman? Hardened space warrior. Huh.
No, it looks like a woman. The waist to hip ratio, there looks like boobs. But this Catwoman, right?
Yeah?
That's actually super fucking powerful.
Yeah. Well, it's got yeah, it's got
And it like in sort of the feline sense of it, right? The
well,
core.
she's sort of crouched there and she's
Yeah,
looks like a coiled spring.
yeah, right.
I'm
And
not sure.
this other woman, on the left here, right? Yeah, no, chest thrust out like a guy, shoulders back, confident, legs apart. Yeah, no, but I mean, like, they all look like strong women.
And I bet they all move differently, but she's saying they all move the same except for the one woman who only wiggled slightly because she had her hands down on a gun. All right. Teal, dear, you want to get in there? I said I threatened everyone with a hard banana, but then I didn't follow through.
Nope.
Bioterrorism agent or crime boss or vampire or assassin. Of course, in the real world, people do walk with a sway of the hips when wearing high heels. If we want to get really technical about it, this slight hip sway occurs in order to maintain balance. This in and of itself is not a
No,
problem.
no, Anita. It doesn't matter whether you're wearing high heels or not. If you're a woman, your hips will sway more than if you're a man because your hips are jointed differently than a man's hips. Your pelvis is a completely different shape to allow for childbirth, and because when you know people are watching, you will move differently.
You'll emphasize your differences. Strangely enough, we like to emphasize our differences when we feel confident and want to appeal sexually to people of the opposite sex. It's sort of a thing with humans.
Or people of the same sex.
Or people of the same sex, if that's your approach. And I'm not. Oh God, I sound like a fucking prude now. All right, whatever. Banana.
Other than generally being deeply uncomfortable. But it raises an important question.
Wait. Well, what's deeply uncomfortable?
High heels, and this is the only grievance. This is the only grievance I have with these sort of the costumes of some of these characters. This is the only fucking grievance I have, and the reason why I have a grievance is because I know a woman can look fucking hot in a pair of actual freaking knee-length combat boots, right? I actually, when I was in Montana with my boyfriend to do a speech years ago, we went to a strip club, and there was a woman at that strip club who was wearing essentially very, very sexy knee-length combat boots. I can't even fucking imagine how many holes, how long the laces were. And she was probably the sexiest stripper in the place, right? Yeah, no, you don't have to wear high heels to be sexy, right?
But here's the thing, just to biology. And this is a story from myself, and I totally like. You're right, Karen. You don't have to wear high heels to be sexy. But the other implication is that high heels are impractical. Now here's something that might make possibly a different. I don't know. I mean, people will judge for themselves. For the longest time, I couldn't run because I have this tendency of, for whatever reason, having scar tissue in my muscles. Like I tend to have a lot of scar tissue. So I have a lot of scar tissue in my calves. I can't actually. My flexibility is limited. I can't like touch my toes or anything. And usually when I exercise, I have to take something hard and then balance myself with my calf over that hard thing and try to break apart the scar tissue, which is not fun. But the upshot of this is I've always had problems running for any length of time. Not necessarily because I can't handle the endurance of the running for any length of time, especially when I was in a lot better shape when I was doing martial arts. But the problem was that after a certain length of time, my calves would completely cramp up to the point where I couldn't walk almost. And that's why I have to break through the scar tissue with like I use a barbell right now, but I've also used like a ping pong, or not a ping pong, but like a golf ball or like a hard racket ball and stuff like that. And but my point is that when I did one thing differently, I was like studying how to run and how people run and how to rehabilitate my ability to run. And I found out that there's a group of people who run on the balls of their feet. So they don't heel strike, they strike on the balls of their feet. So I taught myself how to run on the balls of my feet and to preserve my calves, and it did, although I'd still have trouble with it. But I also noticed that after I learned, because it took like months to actually learn and not feel like the mental effort of making myself run on the balls of my feet made it all feel like a lot harder. But once I got through that and got into the habit, I found out that I could run a great deal further on the balls of my feet, and that I had a hell of a lot less strain on my legs by running on the balls of my feet. So the high heels may not be as impractical as you think because they force women to move onto the balls of their feet. Now I don't know if that's the intention, but it's something to think about. Silence. All right.
No, that's actually, um, uh, if you look at how you run in a swimming pool, right?
Yeah.
If you're chest deep in the water and how you run, you're running on the balls of your feet.
Yeah.
The
Well,
heel
I
does
found
ground first, the bottom first.
Yeah, well, I found like after I was not heel striking as badly, like I found that my legs in general were a lot less in pain after running. So I mean it's something to think about. I never ran in high heels though. I got these little toe
I,
shoes.
I don't wear high heels myself, so but I would expect that Anita probably has a few pairs of high heels in her closet.
So you can actually run really well in high heels as long as you don't like if you keep on the balls of your feet. So who knows? Like, and that may not be as impractical as you think. But unless Taylor wants to get in on that long digression.
Nope, I'm
Okay.
clawing back the will to live because Anita.
Uh-huh.
This slight hip sway occurs in order to maintain balance. This in and of itself is not a problem, other than generally being deeply uncomfortable. But it raises an important question. Why are these female characters in combat roles wearing high heels? With all the fighting, running, and climbing these women have to do, dressing them in heels is clearly a decision rooted in sexualized aesthetic pleasure rather than believability. In
Yes,
fact,
I
animating
agree
so
with
many
that.
female
I
characters.
agree with that, and it's not just because of the running. It's because of the climbing and all of the other stuff. High heels are notorious for making noise. They're notorious for not having any kind of grips on the bottom of them. They like they. I have actually worked in places where I tried to work in high heels, and I was really glad that I brought my other shoes. And they weren't even really high heels; they were like little kitten heels, but they had no grips on the bottom. So every time I stepped onto the tile floor, they threatened to send me skidding on my ass. Right there's just no way because they just don't have any traction.
Okay. Let's hard banana this. But yeah, no, I would agree. Like in those areas that high heels are incredibly impractical. But look at the ninja guy with his shoulders completely bare and his armor not actually going to help him for turning anything, like turning a knife or whatever.
Yeah, but
There's sexualization going
he's
on
not
all
going to
over the
fall
place.
on his ass the moment he steps on a tile floor either, right?
True.
Seems to fit
I'd,
into this
I'd be
theory.
intrigued to see like some of these supposed examples of women in all of these situations who are just in high heels for no discernible reason.
That's a good
Because
point.
I'm just sort of trying to think, like, is there any time I've actually seen women in these games and it's not been like they're in high heels because it's some sort of subterfuge, event where it's like, yeah, no, they're being sneaky as fuck and they don't want anyone to find them out.
Well,
Yeah,
You
that's a
know,
good
is
point.
how many of these women actually are like going into these sort of situations with just high heels on?
no,
I'm really struggling to think of any outside of like
I,
Bayonetta.
I think Bayonetta. I think Catwoman too has she has sort of the 2 inch. They're not like stripper heels, but they're 2 inch heels, and the thing with the heels is that they take the sort of the 7 square inches of your heel, right, and they contract it down to maybe 1 square inch that actually connects with the ground, right? So yeah, no, I don't think it's practical. I think what would be practical would be, maybe not a pair of sneakers, but a pair of combat boots or a pair of, very, very soft
Toe shoes.
soft, leather slippers that have soft soles, right? Where you can spread your toes and have, and they grip, but they are you can feel the ground under you, right? the texture of the ground. That's what I think would be more practical. So I'm willing to give her this point, but I'm not willing to say the hip sway is a result of the high heels.
Well, not entirely.
Standard sexualizing walk pattern is an example of one of the ways the male gaze manifests in video games. The term male gaze was coined in 1975 by feminist film critic Laura Mulvey and refers to the tendency for the visual arts to assume and be structured around a presumed masculine viewer, or in this case, player. The male
Wow, let's just go back like 1 second.
Yeah, no, you're looking at a woman who looks like she just hates everything.
Yeah, maybe we should stop getting philosophical advice from misanthropes. Well, at least not misandrist misanthropes. Yeah, she does look like she hates everyone. She probably hates you.
She just looks like there is nothing in this world that could possibly please her. She would find fault with anything and everything. Served a cup of tea. It's too hot. It's too cold. You know, the sugar is lumps rather than granules, right? Or it's granules in packets rather than lumps. You know, something's wrong with everything. That's what this woman makes me think of. She just looks miserable.
Yeah, she does. That's I just wanted to note that 'cause just that face is like I don't want to see that face in my bedroom window in the morning, like looking in. That okay, I'm getting
or at any point during your day.
no. I just imagine her popping in like just at the door window, like over your table as you're eating lunch, just looking at you like that.
Yeah.
Holy fuck! Oh, that would be creepy. You're creepy. But strangely enough, I could imagine her like in the bushes, staring.
From behind a tree.
Yeah, staring. Oy vey. All right, banana.
In this case, player. The male gaze manifests when the camera takes on a perspective of a stereotypical heterosexual man. An indisputable example of this is when the camera lingers, caresses, or pans across a woman's body, although it's not always that obvious. In games, it can be as simple as the in-game camera resting so that a character's butt or breasts or both are center-line.
Except this is bullshit, because when you put this into like film theory and things like that, that's bullshit. There's like, oh, it's all about the audience. No, it's not about amusing the audience. In some cases, it's about giving you the perspective of what that character is looking at. It's not meant for you, it's so you know what that character is thinking or what they're focusing on.
Looking at what's her name.
Yeah, it's not like, oh, hey, audience, better fucking get your tackle out and start beating it to this hot young thing. No, it's because it's like, no, he's interested in her, that's how we're expressing it. If the camera angle was constantly panned back and you just saw them having a chat over this open car engine, you wouldn't necessarily get that that's what his thought is about. But because it's got that,
so it's made characterization of the male character. Yeah, exactly. I gotcha. Yeah, interesting.
Can I just say that?
Yeah, I know you're going to do it.
The seams of this woman's oh my goodness, like this crotch seam is not typical. This I sew, right, and so I know this is not typical. This is like extremely sexual. Even the way the seam puckers between her butt cheeks and kind of goes into this shadow in the middle that is, oh my goodness, yeah. Oh,
yeah, it's sexualized.
Everything. Oh no, but I approve. I highly approve.
But Anita doesn't.
Both hands on the keyboard, Karen.
Yeah, let's get through this.
I have one hand on the keyboard and one hand on my cigarette.
All right. Let's do a hard 20.
It can be a cutscene that rests on a woman's butt. It can be clothing that they are wearing or the way they talk. Or it can be as basic as the way a female character moves around the game world. The male gaze reinforces the notion that men look...
Okay, fuck you on one of those camera angles. You intentionally got that by looking up and driving the camera into the floor mechanically. You abused the mechanics of the camera and how it interacts with the scenery so that it doesn't cut through it. Fuck you, Anita.
Yeah, I was about to say the same damn thing. I guess she's
I
just gonna
love
move
how
back a
she
few
does
steps.
this in so many of her things. Like, oh, look at these camera angles we found. You're the person who like goes into a fucking corner and turns 90 degrees so that the camera would zoom in on like Lara Croft's tits for like half a second, and you were trying to pause it. You were that person, weren't you, Anita? You are that level of like 12-year-old boy in this
Yeah.
topic.
Well, something just occurred to me while you were saying that, and I should probably get it out before I forget it. Um, this like games, they do have sexualized women, and they also very obviously have sexualized men. Which, when you look at the sexualized, for example, to use the example of the ninja, like his sexualization has there's sort of a tension between, and there always is a tension with male sexualization between the body being attractive and the capability of doing force and being emotion being attractive, and he just hits right in the sweet spot. But what's interesting is that you've got these games with very sexualized men. Like the men are sexy; they're supposed to be what women find attractive. And having read some romantic fiction in the last couple of days, I can say that these guys who make these games, they got your number, ladies. They know what you find attractive, and they put it into the game in the form of the male character. So you got presumably a majority male audience playing a character that would be attractive to women, and you got attractive women in the game. But if you look at what women do when they want to feel attractive, and I think that the game is not necessarily all about men, feeling attractive, or it's also about feeling competent, which is an aspect of attraction for men, and all of this other stuff. I'm not saying that's the exclusive thing, but if you look at what women do when they want to, what women look at, they just look at women who are desirable. They don't have any men who are desirable necessarily in when they're trying to fantasize about being desirable. They don't include desirable men. That sounds actually a little bit more exploitative and shitty. Like men include women when they want to feel desirable, but women don't include men when they want to feel desirable. It's like, no, your entire purpose in my life is just to desire me. I don't need to have you around. Just your desire for me. Yeesh, it's no narcissistic. But anyway, I just wanted to point that out because I thought of it, and now I'm gonna banana. Unless anyone wants to add anything to that.
This clip right here is of a stripper in GTA, like a prostitute. If they're not being sexualized, they're doing their job wrong. It's actually part of her job description, not necessarily her character. So,
Gotcha.
yeah.
I would say her exaggerated hip sway in this thing may be because she's actually walking on flip-flops, not heels. Like,
Yeah. Okay.
when you actually look at how flip-flops,
The most painful footwear ever invented.
how they don't
Flip-flops.
stick to the bottom of your foot. They're not held on, so you essentially have to sort of twist your foot to keep them on properly with every step. And it could be that she's not wearing heels, and that's why she's wiggling like this.
Okay.
World. The male gaze reinforces the notion that man looks and the woman is looked at. Or as art critic John Berger explains in the 1972 book Ways of Seeing, men act and women appear. Men look at women. Women watch themselves being looked at. This determines not only most relations between men and women, but also the relation of women to themselves.
Fuck you. Truly, bitch. That does not determine the. Oh, no, sorry. You're just mouthing off this fucking idiot's statement. Fuck you, John Berger. Fuck you.
No,
You don't speak to me.
I don't.
He's saying this determines not only the most relations between men and women, but also how the relation of women to themselves. Fuck you, John Berger. It does not determine the relationship of me to myself. I'm sorry, Karen. I know you're going to come in and say something here, but I am fucking pissed at this. It does not determine the relation of myself to myself. Men's gaze doesn't do that.
Well, no, but
At least not any more than women's does.
yeah, no. The thing is that yeah, okay. Men and women, men act and women appear. Well, women act and men appear too, right? And so, like, men look at women, look at their bodies, right? Women also look at men and their bodies and what their bodies represent, right? And yes, it does determine most relations between men and women. It determines the way men and women strut when they know they're being watched by somebody attractive of the opposite sex, right? It determines the relation of women to themselves. It does, right? It absolutely does. But they're leaving out half the story. They're leaving out how men perform for women, right? It's not just women performing for men. It's not just women making themselves appear according to what men find attractive. It's also men doing the same thing to make themselves attractive to women. They're just leaving half of it out, right? And this is what really, really fucking frustrates me about all of this. It's like a lot of it seems to be like it's accurate, but it's not complete. It's just half the fucking picture. And then they say, here's this half the picture, and this proves women are oppressed and men are privileged, without ever looking at how men behave around women, how men change their behavior around women, how men change the way they walk around women, how men change the way they act around women, right? They don't ever look at that, right? And this is something that I have observed over and over and over and over again, is that the way men behave when and act and talk and present themselves when they are just among each other is completely fucking different from the way they do when there are women around, particularly attractive women, right? They change, and it's not even a conscious decision to change their behavior and the way they present themselves. It's just a change that they undergo, like the change in walking on the treadmill. When they know a woman is an attractive woman is watching them, they're going to change the way they walk subconsciously, just because, right? Okay, right? I can agree with everything he said, but he's missing half the story.
What? Echo. What women feminists say? They call it a power fantasy. Okay, they call it a power. But what is it a power fantasy for?
For sex.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. Like, what is it? What do you honestly, like, women? Feminists? What do you honestly think that this power fantasy is for men? And strangely enough, the men in this power fantasy are attractive to women. And I'm sure if you want to say they aren't, then I suggest you go look at some romance novel titles and read some of that shit. These men in these games are attractive to women. Okay? That's the male power fantasy. Being attractive to women. Seriously, think about that. How is that any different than what you call the beauty ideal? It isn't, except you've termed it a power fantasy. Well, why do you think men want to feel powerful? So they can attract women.
Even look at the Disney movie Beauty and the Beast, right? You had this horrible hairy beast, right? But what did he have? He had broad shoulders and a broad chest, and he had narrow hips, and he had horns, but he didn't have the face of a bull or some herbivore. He had the face of a predator, of a hunting animal, of a strong animal that is not just a beast of burden, but a beast of war, right? A killing machine. He had all of that. He had all of those things, even as the beast. He had all of these sort of tropes that women find attractive in men, right? And one thing he didn't have, he was grumpy, but he didn't have arrogance. He wasn't full of himself, right? He was just angry for good reason, right? But you sort of look at all of those things, and like all of these things are apparent in characters like in God of War and Hitman and all of these other characters, these male characters. So, they're strong, they're powerful, they get things done, right? They usually have decent bodies. They're attractive.
Invariably.
Yeah.
They have decent bodies.
There's a character or two in GTA that are the dude in the Hawaiian shirt. He's not what I would call a dude who gets lots of phone numbers from women, just chatting them up on the street. But he is he can be turned into somebody who gets things done, somebody who's powerful, somebody who can make things happen, right? And that seems to be primarily that seems to be the criteria for women as far as the men that they're attracted to. So yeah, sometimes
I
the
just,
body doesn't matter. Sometimes it does, and often it'll just add to the package. Turns a 9 into a 10 if he has that perfect body. But he doesn't need to necessarily have the perfect body in order to attract a woman.
okay. So what I wanted to, like, the power fantasy. So men are a power fantasy, women subject themselves to the beauty ideal. I mean, that's so arrogant that feminists would say that, because the power fantasy is a beauty ideal. It is how men feel attractive to women. And it's women who determine it, because it's women who's determining what is attractive. So they're essentially, I mean, couldn't imagine like meninists saying that women wanting to look beautiful is actually really just a power fantasy, a way of having power over men or over the other women, which is exactly, it's actually fairly accurate. I don't know if men's power fantasy is quite as explicit as that, as having, this explicit power to make women do what you want. I think it's more like just make women want to have sex with you, which is,
Yeah. Well,
to
I
be
mean,
honest, it seems a lot less exploitative, to be fair.
even going back to Beauty and the Beast, Disney's Beauty and the Beast. Okay, he lives in a castle, right? He doesn't live in a shack in the woods, does he?
No, he doesn't. Okay, Teal dear, do you want to climb into this?
No, I'm okay.
All right. Feel like we've been light on the deer today. But let's do a hard banana.
Women to themselves. To be clear, the male gaze is not a hard and fast rule. It's a theoretical concept that is meant to help us understand the sometimes subtle and nuanced ways in which our culture influences media, and the way that media in turn can shape and reinforce existing gender dynamics in our culture. The male gaze is also not in any way limited to men or heterosexual people. Almost all of us internalize and sometimes identify with the male gaze to some extent.
What the fuck are you on?
This is the
No.
mandatory feminist get-out clause. I'm noticing this more and more. They'll just make these massive sweeping generalizations. They'll just say, no, this is how it is. Oh, but let's not forget that basically, because I'm saying most, that suddenly means I can get away with saying whatever the fuck I want. This is what this is. But again, it's this idea that if women apply the same standard to women, or if men apply the same standard to men, then suddenly it's all a problem suddenly, somehow. It's basically taking, if you ever look at someone in this capacity at all, it must be a problem.
See
For
no evil, I
reasons that
guess.
are never really fully explained, and never will be.
All right, banana.
When Anita is able to adequately explain why finding someone sexually attractive, not even in an oh my god I'm gonna go rape them way, but just in a, it is an aesthetically pleasing person.
You know what? I think they reveal something. I think feminists reveal something when they look at these powerful men and they say that's a power fantasy for men, because it is directly related to what women find desirable. Not just power, but the power of action, the power. I mean, like I said, firemen, soldiers, cops. Those are the most common stripper fantasies for women. You're going to turn around and say that
Yeah.
men embodying essentially a game world version of those fantasies, embodying those fantasies, and that's a power fantasy. That's a power fantasy. What is it a power over fantasy? Feminists, I think you need to look long and hard at that.
It's a
Because I think what
power
you're
over other
saying,
men. It's
it's
power
not
over
just the
women.
power, and women, but the power over women is, of course, desire. So you
Yeah.
are correctly labeling men wanting to be desirable to women a power fantasy.
Well, look
Well,
look
guess what? This is showing women's power.
well,
All of this isn't the male gaze. You might as well call it the. What is a
look at
good word?
look
This is a power fantasy for women. The
look
fact that they have men enthralled to them. That's a
look
power fantasy.
look at this picture. This is not a male power fantasy.
No, it isn't. If
Uh,
anything, he looks like he's a little submissive.
He is, and she's an older woman. This is Mrs. Robinson from The Graduate. And yeah, no, she's his friend's mother or whatever, and she's going to seduce him. He's just like a college student, and yeah,
He doesn't even seem
that
very
is
like.
more in line with what what women have in mind when they want to read a romance novel, and the female character is often, sort of a cardboard cutout, somebody, a placeholder for the reader, and any man can kind of stick himself in this guy's place and think, oh my God, this super sexy older woman.
Well, I actually get a different interpretation. Just looking at his face, he looks, and it might be difficult for you to see it because I know that my internet is shit. He doesn't look happy. He looks actually he looks pretty nervous or
He does
trepidatious
look
or
nervous, and it's because it's his mom's friend, or his friend's mom rather, and so it's like, this is like, and
so
as
essentially this is the ultimate female fantasy because she's compelling him to have sex with her sexual desire is forcing his hand beyond his own moral or his own, I guess, ethical code or his own feelings, like of loyalty to his friend, I
Yeah, well, and
imagine.
I also think it's a male fantasy too, right? That he just doesn't have to do anything other than just be a dorky guy, and this super sexy woman is all over him, right? Like it goes both ways. It absolutely does, and I think that there is, like this leg here with the stocking on. This is female power in a huge way,
Yeah,
right?
and it's in all of this in many ways is a female power fantasy, Anita. The idea that you can just destroy men with your sexuality. Not what I mean by destroy is like there's a few steps in between your sexuality and destroying them. But the idea that you can jerk them around like an ox with a ring through its nose with your circus, that is a female power fantasy. And you can see it in romance. I mean, like I actually quite enjoyed the two romantic novels that I read during my vacation. But one of the things that I found most eye-rolling is literally every dick on the planet was pointed at the female character. And I'm like, yeah, no. Everyone, like every male that she comes across is going to hit on her. Uh, that beggars belief. And I just was rolling my eyes throughout all of this. That is in a woman's power fantasy, Anita, is that she just lays men low with her desirability, that they just grovel, they roll, they crawl on their belly for her. That's part of a lot of women's fantasies.
Yeah.
And if you're going to ignore the fact that that is a female power fantasy, and the funny thing is that the corresponding male power fantasy actually is a lot more egalitarian and a lot more respectful of women. Because you got the female fantasy, you don't even really see the male desirability in the female fantasy. He might not even exist. It's just that she's just desirable, just in some sort of floating void. And that he just exists as an eyeball to desire her, and that's it. Whereas the male power fantasy, there's more action, there's more effort put into seduction. You actually see the attractive woman who's also herself has her own desirable power. I mean, if you look at games in terms of presenting a power fantasy or a sexual desirability fantasy for men, that's not all they are. That's not what I'm saying. But if we just look at it through that lens, then you got a guy who does a whole bunch of shit to be desirable and isn't in and of itself physically desirable, so he's like a perfect 10 to begin with just physically, and then he does all this shit to be desirable for these women who are all themselves allowed to be desirable, allowed to have their own power in this entire fantasy. Much more egalitarian, much more respectful than this shit.
Yeah.
Okay, Teal Dare, I'll step off my soapbox.
Okay. The thing that I just find weird about this, we know that women have, sexual fantasy. This shouldn't really be a surprise to anyone anymore. What I just find bizarre is this idea that Anita just doesn't seem to recognize that it exists, or that if they do, that what a woman finds desirable must somehow have exclusively been informed by what men are doing. And it flies completely contrary to everything that we see in nature. In nature, females of the species, and this is actually the same in humans, despite Anita's clear objection to this, females are the ones who, in pretty much all cases, determine what is desirable. Like, there is no way in hell that you would have had, like, you know, birds of paradise developing if males were the ones controlling what was desirable, because they wouldn't grow these ridiculous massive feathers everywhere because they're impractical. They mean some of them can't fly properly, but they do it because that's what the females want. You know, they're this idea that men have to do all this stuff, that's because that's what women want. If men could get away with not doing anything in order to impress women and gain their attentions and their affections, they would do nothing. So I just find it so bizarre that she can't acknowledge this idea that, you know, a woman just sort of being in this position of, no, you have to do this and then I will find you desirable. That she just can't see that that is the basic dynamic of, like, the human mating ritual.
Oh, that women control the entire dance. This is why feminists hate PUAs so much.
Sorry, guys, I'm dealing with the compressor again, so why don't we, banana?
God. But, yeah, okay, banana.
Eradicating the male gaze is not as simple as introducing an inverse female gaze that sexualizes men either. Not just because equal opportunity sexual objectification isn't the answer, but also because it isn't actually equal. One reinforces pre-existing oppressive ideas about women that are real and damaging to women in their everyday lives. The other doesn't reinforce anything.
What?
Go ahead, Karen, I'm still dealing with the compressor.
Oh, God. Oh, God. The other doesn't reinforce anything. Yeah, this guy here, he's not reinforcing any stereotypes. He's not reinforcing any female expectations. He's not reinforcing any societal expectations. He's not reinforcing anything. Oh,
nope.
my fucking...
He's not reinforcing the societal expectation or the expectation that women have that men be big, strong, fast, able to beat the shit out of everyone else at the mere whiff of her hand, just like, go and slay that army over there for me, and then I shall marry you. You know. Oh, by the way, I heard there was a dragon over there. Here's a fucking teaspoon. Go and cut its heart out. And then you can maybe get a glimpse of me with my kit off.
Yeah, no, this is absolutely fucking ridiculous.
Just a second.
I can't yell because my boyfriend is busy recording some stuff in the office. But she's completely retarded. Oh yeah, romance covers.
Yeah. The other thing is, it's just this bizarre idea that that it must be harmful, or that it must not
enforcing
be harmful.
anything.
This image. Click on the visit page, because that image is from Longmire Does Romance, I believe. He did a whole bunch of but he replaced the titles. And oh wait, this is a Pinterest. Never mind.
Yeah, it's a Pinterest, but it's demonstrating the point.
Yeah,
okay, Karen. It's demonstrating the point quite aptly. This is no, like, this isn't. Look at this guy. Look at these guys. You're telling me that this guy, who could have just come right off of a romance cover, except he doesn't have the buxom, disheveled maidens crushed to his chest, that this guy, and I'm not sure romance novelists or romance readers necessarily like the facial hair, but whatever. This guy, and maybe the feet are too big, but whatever. This guy, you never really see the feet on the romance novel.
Not reinforcing anything.
He's not reinforcing anything. Nothing. Not a fucking thing. Once again, let's take a look. Ooh, look at this blonde guy. It's like the same blonde guy. I guess this is Fabio. Is probably the one who was modeling that. Look at this. Ladies, look at this shit, and then get back to me when you call this a male power fantasy, because this is what you find desirable, and men are aware of that. And game makers are aware of that, and guess what they do? They look at those fucking romance, or they are aware of them, and they create men who sort of look like that, and who do all of the shit that they do in romance novels. Because if you ever read one, the men are constantly beating back obstacles, destroying shit, cutting shit down, I don't know, sneaking into places to steal stuff. They're doing that constantly in romance books. A game is practically, okay, I'm going to go this far. I hope I don't offend anyone. A game, you take a romance book, you can make a game out of it. You can make a game out of it.
Oh, yeah.
Literally, these games are allowing men to embody the characters in a fucking romance book that you guys drool over and slick yourself over. And then you turn around and you say, oh my God, it's a power, yeah, it's the power fantasy of being good enough for you.
Yeah.
Jesus.
And now women get to realize that they have all been fantasizing about the plot of the game Mario.
Yes.
Have fun with that, women.
Yeah, except Mario isn't buff.
Oh no, but if he were.
If you were, yes. That's essentially it. You have all been fantasizing in romance fiction, fantasizing the plot of the usual game, except there's more romance in it. In games, it's just the man doing the man side of the plot, and that's it. And so occasionally there's a woman involved as well. All right, let's move on. Sorry guys, that was a little bit of a blow up. Okay, hard banana.
Or are the two interchangeable? For example, when the satirical website The Hawkeye Initiative reimagines male characters in sexualized poses that are common for female characters.
Oh, she can go fuck herself. She can go fuck herself because, yeah, no.
Why isn't he smiling saucily? Because really, he's not really working that pose very well.
Yeah, no, he's still got his masculine face on. He's got his game
just
face
looks
on.
ridiculous.
Yeah, no. But, I mean, like, honestly, what the fuck? What the fuck is this? This really pisses me off because, you know, this woman is attractive to men and to a lot of women. Thank you very much. This man is not attractive to women and probably not that attractive to men, just the way he's posed, right? Because men who are attracted to men tend to be actually attracted to men, right? I'm sorry.
Well, you know, the thing is, if he was working it a bit better, he could probably move the cheeky angle, but he looks pissed off, so you're wondering if there's like a closet that you're missing, because he's like hiding in a closet waiting to spring out. It's just too not contextualized, I think.
No,
Whereas
she can
with
just...
her,
It's the fact that they are intentionally mixing up two different things here. Like, she is very sexy in the feminine way, but what they've done with him is they've taken someone who is in every way masculine and put it into that. Like, he could be an attractive guy in that pose if he was, like, a very sort of effeminate man. Then they could pull that off.
Yeah,
in the same way that a woman can be attractive in a masculine pose if she is a more masculine character, if she's more muscular, larger, and all that stuff. If he was like a very sort of slim, more sort of femboy style character, you could get away with that. But it's the fact that they've taken all of the like masculinized things that women find attractive in men and that men admire in other men, and then they've just contorted it into the thing that is like a woman's pose. It's just an unnecessary juxtaposition that makes no fucking sense.
The other thing is that his expression, like, she looks coquettish. She looks like she might be actually even hiding, and ready to do some dumb damage. He looks like he's praying in the most awkward angle humanly possible. It's like, why are you... And he's focused. He's either got his eyes closed. It feels like he's either got his eyes closed, or he's just unconscious, or he's focused on something, like, or he's not even thinking. Like, it doesn't make any fucking sense. It's like a really ugly picture.
Well,
anyway.
And on top of that too, right? This is not a masculine body from the waist down either. The waist to hip ratio is
completely wrong.
Yeah, is completely off. The
why
waist
didn't
to
they just use
the female ideal. It's not the male ideal.
And the other thing is, why didn't they just use the yeah, you're right. He sort of looks like he's got some sort of weird butt implants. But it's like, why didn't they just use the Spider-Man pose, which was identical to the Spider-Woman pose?
Yeah.
Like, why didn't they use that? And he didn't look too bad in that. You just look very, very flexible. Okay, let's move on.
It isn't using the female gaze. This is just the male.
Okay, all right. You know what? This is
Let's
not
totally
a fair,
change the angle of the hips for this picture, because fuck you.
this
Well,
is not a
and
fair comparison. You're essentially giving, and it's not a fair comparison because you're giving men, you're forcing on men what is attractive about women.
yeah, no, but also, yeah, no, like they're giving this guy the ideal waist to hip ratio, and the butt ratio of fucking Kim Kardashian, right? Like literally from mid shoulder down, right, mid back down. This is to the top of his calves because he still has superhero calves, right? This is Kim Kardashian's body. This is not his body, right? Even if he was posed that way, that's not what his body would look like.
Yeah, so this doesn't even look like a man. This is like you're forcing. Why would you do this? Of course this looks ugly because it's really bad fucking anatomy. Learn how to draw men.
Male gaze applied to men. When male characters are depicted as shirtless or wearing little clothing, like the character sometimes dubbed Hot Ryu from Street Fighter V, their lack of clothing demonstrates their power and strength rather.
This what? Okay, let me. I guess this is just demonstrating his power and strength, not his attractiveness to the woman on the cover and the women who read this shit. And it's not shit. No offense to romance. Yeah, I read it too, but fuck it. Like, own it, ladies. All right, but that silence.
No,
Endless
I agree.
silence.
I agree.
Than depicting them as
It's completely fucking like this is more than this screenshot, this still here. This is more than what you would find on a romance novel cover, right? You would not find muscles this big. You would not find a back this broad. You would not find lats quite this huge, right? But okay, you would find all of that as defined. You would find the ideal shoulder to hip ratio that men have. You find all of these things on the romance novel covers, and so yeah, no, it's
Well, here's the thing. Women.
exaggerated. It's an
Women.
exaggerated. If you look at some of the female characters in some video games that have like these gigantic tits that like each one is like bigger than her head, right? Okay, this is the equivalent of that. This is taking it to an extreme, right? That the powerful body that women find attractive taken to the extreme. It's more extreme than most women, I think, would actually find attractive in real life, but it is the extreme idealization or caricaturization of the ideal male form. Same with the gigantic tits, each this bigger than her head, right? It's the caricaturization, the idealized, stylized version of the female form. What makes it different from men? What makes it sexy compared to men, right?
Okay, can
That's
I
all.
just? Yeah, that's. You might also look at the fact that women tend to like. They like an ideal. They have an ideal that's actually slenderer than what men like. So just the fact that you look at these fashion magazines and you're looking at something that's slenderer than what women like or what men like doesn't mean that men don't like women who are less slender but sort of towards the slenderness. And just because this guy is more beefed than what women like, it doesn't negate the fact that men still, like women still like beefed up men. And incidentally, I noticed that you're not using a lot of the other men. That you're suddenly fixated on this one male character to disprove your point, which is sort of dishonest. Because every other male character you've shown, aside from the one guy from Grand Theft Auto, has been right in line with the romantic ideal that you see on romance novels. And I suppose those are male gaze too. Jesus. But incidentally, I don't know how it would be. It's like romance novels are like all the stupid shit, and if you look at pornography, which was mainly driven by men, it's just the sex. At some point, there's not as much plot. You get right to the sex, You know, the romance novel is everything before
I
that.
have your pizza, ma'am.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, I don't have any cash. Is there some other way I could repay you? Bom, bow, 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 chicka, bow.
Hey, Teal dear,
Hello.
want some thoughts before the hard banana?
Um,
Oh, that sounded bad.
yeah, but,
Yeah, we're
no.
gonna give you a hard banana unless you speak up.
Okay.
Oh dear.
Uh,
Erotic playthings, or reducing them to sexualized body parts.
that's sorry, Anita. Okay, you stop showing that one guy who proves your point, and now you're showing the guy who disproves your point so fucking bad that he's basically cock slapping your philosophy in the face. Look, improbable armor. Well, no, or at least armor that doesn't protect you as well as other armor might. It's more in the Roman guise of emphasizing his masculinity. There's no way that there's a woman underneath that armor. No way. There is some serious emphasization of masculinity going on there. Naked shoulders, and then you talk about his movement. And I bet he moves to emphasize his. And I've seen in the actual gameplay that you see his ass quite a bit. So why didn't you show gameplay of him, Anita? He looks like he just walked right off a romance cover. That's probably why. Because he immediately disproves your theory. Instead, you use a slightly comical, over macho character who's probably created to be just like that.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Okay. Anyone want to get some more words in?
I'm still
Are we ready?
confused who the guy in the suit is in this. I actually have no idea who that character is.
He's probably a random. She just pulled out for whatever reason because she thought it proved her point.
The same is true when it comes to movement. Male characters get to move in ways that emphasize all sorts of characteristics and personality traits, but there's a whole world of untapped potential for representations of female characters who aren't animated in ways that frame them as sex objects, but who get to be just as stealthy or strong, swift or imposing, clumsy or graceful.
And aren't they?
Um, you know, I thought so. I mean, like I saw a lot of like examples of women moving around in this video, and like a lot of them were
And also,
graceful.
it seems like selective attention because these guys doing these daring acts and stealing shit and killing people and saving people, that's right out of a romance novel, Anita. So that is male sex appeal. They're performing male sex appeal. Those male characters are performing male sex appeal. So what exactly are you saying?
Yeah, I
It,
know.
it's like what I'm
I know.
trying to.
And then you look at some of the most beloved characters among men, right? Some of the most beloved female characters in say movies, right? Ellen Ripley, right? And the only time she really got even a little bit sort of sexy, right, as a character, sort of sensual, sexy as a character, was in the fourth movie, right? When she was the clone who was grown in a test tube and woke up on the space station, right? That was the only one where she actually really had sort of a sensual side to her, where she sort of moved in a cat-like way, and it was because she was part alien. Um, in all the other movies, she was just all business. She was wearing fatigues. She was, no makeup, hair a mess, like fucking just doing her job, right? Guys love Ripley. They love her. I would bet you that freaking half the male population would have banged her, right? She doesn't need to fucking walk around with her hips swaying and all of that to be attractive to men. Like, but what do men have to do to be attractive to women? Well, they can't be that dude in the Hawaiian shirt from Grand Theft Auto, can they?
No, and they can't be any dude that does nothing, just sits on his. Looks great, but just lounges on a sofa like the Odalesque. There's yeah, bask in my masculinity, ladies. I'm not gonna lift a finger for you, but you may bask. but it's like that's and I wanted to point something out. Isn't it interesting how they used the way Ripley's emotions changed to actually say something about her characterization? And that was this sinister, otherworldly alien quality. They made her more oh fuck. Anita would of course say that's misogyny, but they made her more feminine to suggest that there was something a little bit more sinister going on, a little bit more deadly.
Well, they didn't make her more feminine, I don't think, because she was still like. In fact, I think that in that movie, she was actually probably less attractive than in the others, but they made her more sexual.
Yeah, so they made her more sexual, but it was because she's part alien, and then I guess their sexuality is sort of disturbing, or like there's something going on there, but I don't want to look at it anyway. Teal'c, did you have anything to add to this?
I've completely forgotten the point that she even made. What was she even trying to
The
say?
point that she was making was that that they use
Women
a range of motion. They use a range of motion to characterize men that they don't for women. That women are always basically just this particular female mode, which because they're females you would think would be acceptable to her, but not. So they have to they don't use all of these different ways of moving to characterize the women, even though from what I've seen they do. But whatever.
Doesn't this just kind of harken back to what's been mentioned a few times before, that part of the reason is that you just can't experiment with female characters as much as male characters because people like Anita will come along and slam you as a misogynist if you do. I mean, what happened? I mean, she's sort of talking about like, oh yeah, you can have like, bumbling, incompetent female characters. What happened if someone did put that in a game? Would that be something that she would take on with open arms and say like, yeah, this is great, look, there's a woman expressing herself in a non-female way? Or would they suddenly say, oh no, this is clear just evidence of misogyny because you're showing a woman being incompetent at something?
She probably would show it because the example she showed was confident, normal, and goofy. So I guess if we take away goofy, we got confident and normal, which I don't see how that's any different than Catwoman and the woman who was slightly wiggling because she had her gun down. Like that would be confident and normal if you're doing that, if you're trying to move in that way. So I don't know where she's going with that. And
A means of confidence that she approves of, that she will never actually outline.
Well,
yeah,
that doesn't have anything to do with a woman having a vagina and being different from a man.
and having hips instead of shoulders, or preferring
Well,
to emphasize when she feels confident to prefer to strut with her hips rather than her shoulders.
well, because women aren't normal people, you see.
Oh, Anita, heal thyself of thy own misogyny. Banana.
The way Ellie moves in The Last of Us communicates a sense of tension and danger, demonstrating what it's like when female characters are animated in ways that emphasize their personality and emotional state, rather than serving to sexually objectify them.
Wasn't she? How old is she in this movie, Teal'c, in The Last of Us? She's young.
Good question. I think she's
15?
a teenager, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's like not quite done puberty, just sort of in the midst of it.
Yeah.
Apparently she's aged 13. I've just looked up on the.
There you go. Age 13. Yeah.
13
No.
and then 13 in American Dreams. In Last of Us, she's actually 14.
Yeah.
Okay.
No. So that makes perfect sense. She's moving like a child. She's moving like a. She's not even moving like a man. Here she's not. Walking or moving the way a grown man would. She's just moving like a young teenager would, of either sex, probably.
Yeah, and the other thing is that maybe they did with these other games. Maybe they don't want to go.
Why would they want to sexualize a 14-year-old?
Well, that's like that. She's making the point that she's creeping around. She's using the motion to emphasize the danger. But here's the thing: in a lot of games, maybe they don't want to go for survival horror. Like the Last of Us is pretty fucking survival horror. Like it's pretty grim. And maybe it's not appropriate to have Bayonetta move in a way that doesn't suggest the game is deeply tongue-in-cheek.
Well, and also maybe they don't want to take an adult player, right, and make them move in such a way that makes you feel like they're not confident, right?
Yeah.
Because the way this girl is moving is like she's scared, she's not confident, she does not. I mean, I'm hoping her story arc takes her to a point where she becomes confident,
Yes.
but
Well, I
she's
think she
not.
becomes safer anyway. But that's a really good point, Karen. Why, if you know that the way that women exude confidence is strutting, using their hips because of physical differences that nobody can help, Anita, and the way that men are confident is by moving their shoulders because of physical differences that nobody can help, all they're doing is portraying a hell of a lot of confidence in their female characters. Like that these are really confident women. What the fuck is wrong with that?
Well, I mean, look at runway models, right? You know, and the way they walk. They walk in such a way as to exude confidence. They are exuding confidence in, you know, what their bodies look like. You know, and some of the stuff that they're forced to wear, right, or they're made to wear, is extremely revealing. Some of it's absolutely fucking ridiculous. It's like just outlandish and retarded, right? And they walk as if they don't have a fucking care in the world. That's how runway models walk, of both sexes, right?
Yeah, like they're just denying to alight upon this planet among us mere mortals. Yeah, it's a confidence, and maybe that's something that male game players really like. Anita, they prefer a woman who looks like, she's fucking confident, not like someone who they could, if they were rapists, could rape easily and cow easily. Isn't that interesting? Because if we designed a game for rapists, I imagine I'm a male rapist, not just, well, and also female rapists too. I don't want to assume their
But
sexual preference.
but all of the female characters would move like this girl here.
Yeah, they would all move like this. That's because
The
that's
path
what rapists find attractive. They'd find someone who's scared, doesn't move with confidence, and for women, moving with confidence means moving those hips. And yeah, that's what
Is
they target.
is she okay? Who's this guy here?
Uh,
Is he like a male version of Lara Croft? Because
yes.
I want to know why he doesn't have a shirt on. I want to know why his shorts are bikini style rather than boy shorts, right? I want to know those things.
Yeah, that is pertinent question. Why doesn't he have all that, like, the stuff on his belt? Because he looks less like an
Well,
explorer and more
not
like a
not even the
stripper.
stuff on his belt. Not even, but look at the cut of her shorts, the bottom of her shorts. You know, horizontal. Look at the cut of his bikini style.
What the? Yeah, that is. No, I see that. So
He's
why
wearing
didn't they?
he's wearing the equivalent of boxer briefs, and he's wearing the equivalent of a Speedo. What the
Yeah,
fuck is that?
I'm sure she's going to explain it. Although I think that he would look perfectly fine and perfectly sexy if he just had a short sleeves shirt open up. You know what I mean?
Yeah, or
And
ripped.
proper,
Yeah,
proper, proper, proper short, exactly the same shorts that she has, and just a shirt like hers, except maybe a button shirt that's just open. It could be showing exactly the same amount of stuff as her, but it would be, I don't
yeah,
know, it would be more of a wave to the fact that this guy's a man versus a woman, which
yeah.
doesn't mean that he's not being sexualized. He's just being sexualized in the way that we sexualize men, which brings me to another idea. Throughout this entire piece, the idea that we sexualize men is something that she doesn't seem to consider or conceive of at all. I mean, she talks about the male gaze, and yet she is the one who's presenting this entire piece without apparently ever considering that men can be sexualized. Whereas I'm like going through the entire thing and saying, well, wait, we're sexualizing men there, they're sexualizing men there, they're sexualizing men there. Maybe because you are the one who only has the male gaze, Anita. And I would like to say that I think I have a female gaze because I can pick up where men are being sexualized, whereas you seem to think that the concept is completely improbable, impossible.
Yeah.
Ah, Fielder?
Mhm.
I'm just intrigued to know what ridiculous point she's going to try and make about this.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
a good
Honestly.
thing. All right.
equality and liberation does not lie in equally reducing men and women to objectified parts, but by treating
So equality and liberation for women doesn't lie in equally reducing men down to, despite the fact that men are already sexualized. But you are apparently unable to see because your only gaze in your fucking head is the male gaze. Like, have you pondered that, feminist? That maybe you are saturated with the poison you think infests other women. Okay, I'm sorry.
Allison, she's learned about systems, and she's learned from learning about systems that everything is sexist, everything is racist, everything is homophobic.
No, but seriously, she can't see how this is sexualizing men, how the very nature of gaming actually is sort of sexualizing men, because they're doing everything a man does in a romance novel. That's male sexual desirability right there. And you can't see it. Why can't you see that, Anita? Like, it seems like you're saying, like, we took a little swig of poison and you downed the whole gallon of male gaze. Because I remember you insulting me by saying that I was infected with male gaze. But it is you! The tomato in the mirror is you, Anita! Nobody's going to get that.
Tomato in the mirror?
Yeah.
Okay, never mind. That joke.
It's a science fiction reference.
Okay, let's move on.
Just before.
Oh wait.
Doesn't it just strike anyone else as odd here that she is constantly always having to pull sexualizing out of a character or out of a situation or out of anything and hold it up as this unique focus just within the situation? It's just like, nope, this is clearly just all about this one particular thing. When in a lot of these cases, sexualization is not actually the point. It's more just an incidental factor of everything else going on. Like, she seems to just have way too much emphasis on it constantly throughout, as if the thing that everyone is constantly thinking of and constantly focusing on is how something is sexualized in some capacity. It just seems really like that is the intent, not just an incident. Or is it just me that's sort of seeing it?
Well, if you want an explanation, it's simply because it's easy to shame men about their sexuality and extort compliance out of them. It's basically a really efficient whip, and she's cracking it. That's the only reason why you would do it. Because otherwise it would just be patently, if this wasn't true, people would be just like, you know what, this is a minor part of a game. Why are you focusing on it, you pervert? But nobody says that.
But that is my question to her. Is like, why are you so heavily fixated on this? Because there are many reasons for these traits to exist in people outside of being purely sexual. The sexualness of them is strictly incidental because people are just attracted to the things that sexiness comes as a result of. It's not, I want to be sexy, therefore I am doing this. It's, I do this, therefore I am sexy.
Yeah, no,
it's a constant feedback loop from one into the other, obviously, but she just always seems to be implying that it must be about sex first and everything else is incidental. It's not always.
Well, I would actually agree with her that sex is first, but I would agree with I would actually put the caveat that, like, being hungry is about sex, being thirsty, having an instinct when you're low on water to feel thirsty, that's about sex too, right? Everything is product of who had sex and who didn't successfully reproduced, right? Everything we are, everything that's already programmed into us is a result of that, right? So it all has to do with sex, right? But this idea that she has that it's just sex is the primary concern, sex is the and that it only applies to women being sexy for the benefit of men, that men never ever try to make themselves sexy for the benefit of women, and that none of the tropes, none of the themes, none of the body types, none of the ways of moving, none of those things about, like, that whole thing with putting men into feminine, coquettish feminine poses, right? and feminists have done this over and over and over again. Over the last 10 or 20 years, they've done this numerous times, right? Put men in these positions. Yeah, no, that's not the same. It's not like it's not applicable, right?
No, it's not the same.
It's not a denigration. To say that this, when a man does it, it looks ridiculous. When a man sticks his ass in the air in that way, it looks ridiculous, is not a denigration of femininity. It's actually preserving femininity as women's sole right to express. It's actually saying, okay, women are the ones who have this power. Women are the ones who have the ability to use it. Women are the ones who have the ability to draw in others with it, right? That's women's power. Men have no business fucking sticking their ass in the air and expecting to get anything but laughter, right? That's like it's not a denigration of femininity. It's not a devaluation of femininity. It's not a like seeing women as less than. It's actually seeing women as more than. It's seeing women, if women can adopt masculine poses and still look sexy, right? Whereas men cannot adopt feminine poses and maintain their sexiness, right? This means that femininity, right, is a concept that can be value added. You can be feminine and then some, right? Whereas masculinity is it has an upper fucking limit, right? Or a lower limit, rather, a lower bound below which, or outside of which you cannot go. You are stuck, right? You are stuck in this. So women's roles are much broader than men's. Women have much more freedom to move how they want to move and still be sexy. A woman can be can be Kim Kardashian, or she can be Ellen Ripley, or she can be Sarah Connor from Terminator 2, right? She can be all of those women and still be fucking dead sexy, right? And a man cannot deviate from what makes him masculine and still be sexy to women. He cannot be feminine and still be sexy. He just can't.
And of course, that's toxic masculinity. Echo. Instead of, why don't we call it what it is? Toxic romance novel. Toxic romance masculinity. Because
yeah, but she's arguing this whole fucking time that men have this huge, broad range of ways that they can move and still, it's okay. They can have this, yeah. No, she showed. Then she contradicted herself and showed what's his name, Hawkeye, in that super feminine butt in the air coquettish pose, and he looked ridiculous. Oh, well, so how broad is men's range of movement, the range of movement that we are allowed to see from men, right? Oh, how broad is it? Because a woman can move like Hawkeye in a movie and not be seen as ridiculous, not be seen as disgusting, right? Even Brienne of Tarth from Game of Thrones, right? 6 foot tall fucking muscular woman, right? Plain face. There are men who fap to her. I guarantee you.
I don't think the actress is that plain.
She's plain. She's not ugly. She's plain, right? She's a 5 in the face.
Okay.
She's plain. She's just plain.
Continue your rant.
Yeah, no, and there are men who find her attractive. There are lots of... I find her attractive, right? She's one of the few women out there that I might actually allow to smack my bottom, right? Yeah, no. She has sex appeal despite the fact that there is something about her that is... Like, she moves like a man. She fights like a man. She looks in some ways like a man. She is not hyper feminine. She is not hypersexual, right? But she can still be sexy, right? Yeah, and put Hawkeye in a fucking mini skirt. Put put Lara Croft's fucking male clone into like bikini shorts, right? And see how many women want to fuck him. Yeah, no. Right? This whole idea that she's spinning, that men have all this freedom to move however the fuck they want, right? And women are constrained by this, the exaggerated hip sway. That's what they need in order to be sexy. Yeah, no.
No, the way you should put it is...
fucking part gets laid, Anita.
The way you should put it is that the exaggerated hip swing is what women need in order not to be a article of or a figure of ridicule, Anita. And that's a really good point, Karen. Anita, you just disproved your entire... You don't even have to look at anything besides the video, your own video, to disprove your own video. You just proved that women have a wider range. Like, women can be more masculine in their movements and more feminine in their movements, but men cannot be more feminine in their movements unless they want to be ridiculous. Like you proved with your Green Arrow example. You proved it. And you're also your example from Assassin's Creed, the female assassin. You just disproved your entire fucking thesis. You just pissed it away. And yet you still get listened to. Nobody points it out. And the reason why nobody points it out is because they want to believe this shit. At this point in time, I'm beyond just pointing out the illogic of all of this shit. Because you got to go past this illogical bullshit. Because at this point in time, she has basically, in this very video, in the first half of the video, said the sky is black, and the last half said, no, actually it's white, and nobody calls her out on it. Nobody stops listening to her. Nobody says you're a complete fucking fraud. You can't even keep your party line straight in one 7-minute video. You can't even do that. Nobody calls her out on it. Now, what's interesting to me at this point is not responding to this stupidity and saying, wait a second, you just called the sky black, 5 minutes ago. It goes beyond that. We need to understand why society isn't calling her out on this shit. Why is she speaking? What's she speaking? She's speaking at the UN. What?
Yeah,
What?
She just got another $200 and some thousand.
What is this?
For her video.
We need to understand.
About ordinary women, including a pirate and a,
Yeah, I know. It's just fucking... But we need to go past saying, yeah, she said it was white, now she's saying it's black, or she said it was black, and now she's saying it's white, and she's contradicting herself, and everything she says is bullshit. Cherry-picked bullshit. Why are people paying so much for this? Why is she getting a seat at the UN? Why can she charge $20,000 speaker fee? And we need to recognize she can do all of these things because she's saying something, someone, and a bunch of someones or whoever, society in general wants to hear. They want to hear this shit. Why do people want to hear this shit? Why do they want to hear the exact opposite? She just proved in her own fucking video, by her thesis, she has just proved that it's actually men who have the problem because they are limited in the movements they can have until they become ridiculous. She's actually proven that. She's proven the exact opposite of what she said. And nobody calls her out on it. And I think it's because people want exactly that. She is hiding the fact that it is men who this applies to more. Men who are more restricted in their movements, more restricted in their characterization, or they become absurd. It's not women who have to wiggle their hips in order to not be absurd characters. It's men who never can wiggle theirs, or they become absurd characters. So they always must look and act in a masculine way. So she's proven the exact opposite of what she said, and yet everybody loves her for it. Why?
I don't get it. I don't get it either. It's because it appeals to the women are victims thing. It appeals to the
very basic human nature: man protect, woman be victim. Man provide. Well, it hits you right in that primitive part of the mind.
Which is the same place where the games are coming from.
Yeah, this is the reason why people listen to people like Anita Sarkeesian. It's the same reason why, despite the fact that she's even failed, throwing all of her fucking garbage rhetoric out of the window, this is why she can fail to deliver on her Kickstarter goals, and yet Twitch will still put her on the front page promoting non-gaming material. She's a woman. She's a woman, and she's telling people that men need to help women, that men need to man the fuck up and do something in order to help women.
But manning the fuck up is toxic masculinity. But man the fuck up, Teal dear. But it's toxic masculinity. But man the fuck up. You know?
But lean in. But he for she. But men need to do everything because it's only men who are going to do it, because men hold all of the power. But that means that men have to use all of the power to benefit women. What a radical notion. We've never tried this before. It's the same old shit, just in a new package. And this is why people like it, because it's a familiar lie.
Oh, it so plays on our instincts.
Let's banana the last 20 seconds.
People of all genders and with all types of bodies as full and complete human beings.
All genders and all types of bodies, but yet you're the one who says that the only gender that is normal is male. Like, seriously?
Yep. No, she said women in video games don't move like normal human beings, right? Because they swing their hips a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Really jiggle.
All right, let's end this sucker. I'm verklempt.
Yeah, no, I gotta go too. I got a boyfriend who's like needing some help with some video editing, so.
Okay. So let's say goodnight. God bless. Or spaghetti monster bless if you prefer that.
Or
try not to
y'all.
Fuck all y'all. Try not to get too despondent. The thought that Anita made $200,000 on her latest Kickstarter, and makes $20
on top
grand.
of the almost $1 million she made since her first Kickstarter.
Yup. This is not
including her speaking fees.
Not including her speaking fees. Let's just don't let that bum you out. It's just we just got to do it. We just got to do this thing. We got to figure out why people are so fascinated by this. I guess in a way, Teal Deer has explained it. It's an old story. Men protect, women are protected, and we love it, and we're gonna hump it to death until our culture crumbles around it. But don't be despondent. I think Jesus, where can I go from there?
Shilling.
No, not be shill. I don't feel like shilling.
Anita Sarkeesian made all of this money. If you had only like 10% of what Anita Sarkeesian earned.
Yeah, no.
Damn. Hot damn.
I'm going to shill. I'm going to shill. I'm going to tell people that our Fund Anything campaign is still a go. We've reached our main goal of $9,000.
Over 9,000!
We're over 9,000. But we have an update posted, and we're trying to get Antonio and Brian Martinez. Antonio is our intrepid but inconspicuous documentarian, and you can find his work on the YouTube channel Dig Deep Docs. We're trying
to we changed it back to Badger Cinema. We changed it back to Badger Cinema.
Did you? Oh, what the fuck, Allison? Anyhow.
I'm just being a pain in the ass.
Yeah, I know. But anyhow, we're trying to get him to the ICMI to help Hannah document all of the sort of behind the scenes and the stuff that you wouldn't usually see with all of the cameras just pointed at the podium. And on top of that, we're trying to get Brian Martinez there. He's an assistant producer or production.
He helps. Well, he's more than an assistant producer. Assistant producer for Honey Badger Radio. But in terms of this, he helps Antonio arrange meetings or arrange interviews. He helps develop questions. So he helps the general process of creating the documentary. So he's sort of vital to that.
He did all the work at the South by Southwest thing, so I didn't have to, which was really wonderful. And so we're trying to get him there as well. And so we've got a couple of stretch goals up. It's just on the main page of our Fund Anything campaign, which is fundanything.com/en/campaign/ICMI-16-journey-across-the-pond. And
go to Fund Anything and search Journey Across the Pond.
Yeah, and we hope that you will continue to be generous so that we can get these extra 2 people there. We underestimated our flight costs a little bit for our original goal, and some of us are going to have to cover the difference in terms of costs just out of our own pocket from, just based on the $9,000 just after finding out how expensive it is to fly from the U.S. to the U.K.
Not as expensive to fly from the UK or the Canada to the UK, though.
Oh my God, it was out my ticket and Janet Bloomfield's ticket, right? They cost less than half of like literally we could put our two tickets together and then add another $700, and that was Sage Gerard's ticket. Right?
Yeah, it's it.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, you Brits don't want to see the Americans on your shores, but you're okay with us Canadians.
I think it's there's the grudge over the whole War of Independence, but anyhow, what I'm saying is we're still trying to raise funds. There's still
For Antonio and Brian.
for Antonio and Brian, and hopefully we'll be able to meet goal and get them both there and have a wonderful documentary. Oh, and I have put myself on the line for this. If we manage to get Antonio there, I will release my erotica pen name to the public, and for every $500 above and beyond that that is donated, I will upload a reading of a sex scene that I've written to YouTube under unlisted, just for the patrons. And if we make the final goal, the final stretch goal to get Brian there, I will make all of that public. So
if you want to see Karen's smutty books, go over to Fund Anything and search Journey Across the Pond and donate, because everybody wants to see Karen's smut.
give us the money.
Give us the shekels.
Give it